This man has transmigrated, and even become the most beautiful person in heaven, someone who should have been held in everyone's palms. Yet, just because he and heaven's vice lord, the future demon master Ruzapai, had once shared skin-to-skin intimacy, the other man immediately turned cold-faced and denied knowing him, causing him to be publicly reviled by all the angels in heaven. A pair of eyes so beautiful it defied all reason opened amid the clamor, and before he could react, he looked up to see a little fairy circling above his head. What on earth was this absurdly fantastical room? With disbelief, he walked toward the mirror, his steps very light, as if afraid one touch would make it all shatter. Exquisitely flawless features, paired with a beautiful pair of wings. He raised a hand to touch his face, his breath catching. Is this an angel? Have I transmigrated? But clearly, just last night, he had still been at the company cocktail party. He only remembered that he had drunk too much, then completely blacked out afterward, with not a single memory of how he crossed over. He pressed the pads of his fingers against this face even more handsome than his former one, and there was actually a sheen of tears at the corner of his eye. Before he had time to take a closer look, a voice suddenly sounded behind him, startling him so much that his whole body jolted. A hand rested on his shoulder with practiced ease. Aren't you going to the heaven dungeon yet? Bulachi, your love body is insufficient. You can't hide any longer, you must go. But he hadn't heard the second half clearly at all. He only caught the name Bulachi. It means the goddess of beauty in Western mythology. No wonder this face is so beautiful it's unnerving. The man saw that he wasn't speaking and thought he was afraid to tackle a dungeon alone. So he lifted his chin with one hand, his gaze sticking to him, hot and burning. If you're worried, I can help you. Having just transmigrated over and not yet figured out the situation, he froze on the spot. What on earth is this person talking about? He watched with his eyes wide open as the man yanked open his own collar, his hand slowly feeling its way toward his chest. The man was still complaining, saying that humans now pinned all their dreams on television and games. He even leaned in of his own accord to kiss his chest, expression hazy as if drunk, and said he would help him obtain a body of love. Bulachi hadn't reacted yet, but he was very clear on one thing. He was being taken advantage of. He immediately began to struggle, but the man took his rejection as playing hard to get, leering as he said he had liked him for a long time. Bulachi finally couldn't hold back and swung a punch straight at the man's jaw. That ugly man actually had designs on his body. He was so furious that he clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white, covering his mussed-up chest with one hand. He still felt lingering fear. That scared me to death. My heart is very fragile. How can there be so many perverts in heaven? Just as he was about to pull his clothes back together, this angel accidentally caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. Once again, he sank into the beauty of this new body, disheveled, yet even more alluring, carrying a hint of dangerous temptation. Forget that sleazy man on the floor. Even he himself almost wanted to push himself down. He couldn't blame anyone else. If there was anything to blame, it was that he was just too beautiful. To be able to obtain such a new body, he was genuinely happy. He had long since developed a terminal illness. If he hadn't crossed over into this world, he probably would have died in the late stage of lung cancer as well. Lung cancer diagnosis notice. He raised a hand and pinched his own face. This should be transmigration, not death, right? There was still pain. But thinking about it carefully, it didn't really make a difference. This man transmigrated into the most beautiful existence in all of heaven. He had originally thought that this transmigration was fate's special favor, that it would let his life bloom once more. Full of anticipation, he spread his wings. The moment he flew into the sky, he immediately started wobbling around in messy fly-style curves. Who would have thought that the dignified, most beautiful angel would be afraid of heights? Flustered and flailing about in mid-air, he didn't even have time to pull back his embarrassment. The next second, he heard a broadcast ring out. The corporeal love instance has been activated. Today's instance is the TV drama Blood Crystal. The angel who obtains the most corporeal love in the instance will receive a huge reward. He was very familiar with this show. Bulachi was a bit surprised. These angels actually didn't know the plot. They said that all the corporeal love rests on the characters. If the angels can't obtain it, they will die. That's serious? Wait, so that means, as a star who has watched countless shows, Bulachi actually knows the plot of every TV series. The corporeal love here sounds like the power and money of this world. Wouldn't that mean that from now on he could walk sideways wherever he went in this world? He was still planning out his future in his head when, in the next second, someone suddenly flew over and crashed into him. Hard. What was even more ridiculous was that the people around them actually started complaining that he, the victim, was trash. Were they out of their minds? Clearly he was the one who got hit. yet unpleasant words kept drifting over from all around. Look, that's the one who failed at suicide, who took advantage of Lord Rusapile being drunk and climbed into his bed. Bulachi instantly caught the key points. Suicide? Climbed into Rusapile's bed? That highest-ranking angel, the vice-sovereign of heaven? Isn't he a man? No, that's not right. Angels apparently don't have genders to begin with. The abuse and mockery didn't stop just because Bulachi kept quiet. These people were like flies, truly annoying. Bulachi raised his eyes and stared at the angel who had mocked him first. He swung a punch straight at him. Right now, the most important thing was to get this anger out first. Bulachi, who had always been the most timid, actually dared to make a move, and a whole group of angels were stunned on the spot. Only then did the beaten angel feel the pain and come back to his senses. This bastard's got some nerve. He never imagined that Bulachi would even be bold enough to yank open his collar. In those eyes was a viciousness and coldness he had never seen before. I'm hitting you. So what? Not convinced? If you're not convinced, then swallow it. The angel being beaten was still in shock, his mouth hanging open, but he couldn't force out a single word. Was he like this before? When did his gaze become so bright, so sharp? All the eyes that had been fixed on Bulachi, in that instant, passed right over him and shifted to the space behind his back, accompanied by shouts of praise completely opposite to those at his own entrance. Kneel. They were praising Rusapile, the one rumored to be involved with him. Bulachi's body stiffened. He slowly turned around and looked at that man. He was the Seraphim chief Rusapile. Before he fell and became Ruzipa, he had been the strongest being in heaven second only to God. This man's sense of oppression was absurdly strong. Just meeting his gaze, Bulachi felt his strength drained away, and this body had actually once shared physical intimacy with someone this powerful. Scenes from that night even flashed uncontrollably through his mind. It's over. This is killing me. Just thinking about it already makes my legs go weak. At the very moment Bulachi was about to fall, a pair of strong arms caught him directly, and the man's low, sexy voice fell right by his ear. The man murmured his name, and Bulachi's face flushed even redder in an instant. However, the man's next words shoved him straight into the ice. That day was just a mistake. Forget it. Cold and indifferent. Clearly he had shared an ambiguous night with heaven's most beautiful angel. Yet this man turned his face and denied it at once. His expression even went so cold it was rigid. He said he'd been drunk last night, and that everything that happened between them was meaningless. His gaze was dark and chilly, his oppressive aura crashing down. Don't overthink it. I'll let you off this once for what you did to Megao. Don't let me see you again. He turned and left immediately, tossing back an even colder line. Put your clothes on and get out. In the room, only that stunningly beautiful face on the bed remained. Alone, helpless, and full of sorrow. No, it wasn't me. I didn't. That day was just a mistake. Forget it. Because of this sentence from Rusapile, Bulachi's memories were yanked back all at once, and his mind spun in a dizzy haze. He lifted his eyes and only then saw the cut on his own wrist. Following his gaze, Rusapile let his fingertip glide lightly over the wound, and in the next second, the skin of his wrist was as smooth as before. Bulachi glanced at the person beside him with a complicated expression. Was this wound something the original owner had cut for Rusapile? Was he feeling guilty now? Sensing his gaze, Rusapile was clearly uncomfortable. He raised his hand and shoved him away, then walked straight ahead without looking back. It was just a casual move. Don't flatter yourself. Bulachi almost got knocked over. His face darkened further as he fixed his eyes on Rusapile's back. What kind of madness is this bastard having again? Acting like he's disgusted by touching trash. Obviously the owner of this body once spent a night in bed with him, and it's quite possible he really did die for his sake. Yet Rusapile hates him this much? Bulachi's chest tightened. He might not be the one who actually went through it, but since he's the one using this body now, he still can't stop his heart from aching. This damn man is truly ruthless and cold. Strictly speaking, I didn't personally experience these things, but this body is in my hands now, so the sense of immersion is off the charts. The most beautiful angel, who felt utterly humiliated in public, gritted his teeth, turned around and left, and in his heart he made up his mind. He absolutely would not let this scumbag off so easily. Love energy is the power that low-level angels rely on to survive. The more love energy they have, the stronger, more beautiful, and more dazzling an angel becomes. And an angel without body love will slowly move toward death and eventually become nourishment for heaven. So they must, at any cost, capture the gonglea of the characters inside the dungeon. Bulachi in the team lifted his head and saw Rusapile on the airship. That bastard looked like he was being very intimate with someone. This playboy doesn't even spare a blind person. What a complete scumbag. Bulachi kept complaining under his breath. But as he watched the two on the airship standing so close together, a wave of sourness still rose uncontrollably in his heart. This was the original host's emotion, affecting me. Suddenly, he felt a gaze so intense it was chilling. He looked up, and his gaze crashed directly into Ruzapael's eyes. The other only glanced once, and it sent his heartbeat into chaos, faster and faster. Bulachi was instantly annoyed. How could the original host be attracted to this kind of scumbag? Thump, thump. Because of that one look from Ruzapael, everyone around ended up noticing him instead. From their heated chatter, Bulachi figured out his new title. Butch? Why is he getting cursed at everywhere he goes? And who is Magao? What on earth did the original host do before? Could it be some group? Bulachi forcefully shook off these messy thoughts. No matter what the original host had done before, now this body answers to me. His fingertip pointed straight at Ruzapael on the airship. The highest-ranking seraph, Ruzapael, right? His former self was a super charismatic top star. He had always been the one dumping others. Since when was it his turn to suffer this kind of humiliation? He pulled out a cold smile toward the direction of the spaceship. I will definitely make you pay the price for what you did to me. Just as Bulachi made a dark vow, the next second he was notified by the instance executor. Insufficient spirit body. Bad news. Sure enough, this body had no capital. If he wanted to turn the tables, the first step was to raise his strength. Even in heaven, he had to be the brightest one. Those angels who looked down on him should keep their eyes wide open and wait and see. On the spaceship, Ruzapael's gaze was fixed rigidly on the ground below. The corners of his lips lifted into a cold smile beyond his control. He seemed to really be a little different now. Why are all the capture targets in the Heaven Instance men? Bulachi's face was full of black lines as he stared at the character list for the Blood Crystal Instance. Why isn't there a single cute young lady? Passerby a difficulty, Demon Lord underling difficulty, Emperor difficulty, Heavenly Venerable difficulty. His former self had indeed acted in BL, but now to have him really go on stage. Bulachi looked at the capture targets on the screen. Other than men, he had no other options. Since that was the case, he'd pick the most valuable one. His finger had just tapped down. The system's warm reminder sounded immediately. The system does not recommend that you choose an S-rank capture character with excessively high difficulty in view of your excessive number of prior failures. If you fail this time, you will become nourishment for this world and disappear forever. S-rank capture characters have the highest love intensity, but the capture difficulty is extremely high. In the historical record, the fact that the original host failed too many times was magnified until it was especially glaring. He stared at the history log, his expression full of speechless disbelief. After running the instance hundreds of times, this guy had only gotten an S-rank 3 or 4 times. To put it bluntly, he was just a pretty vase who had nothing going for him except his face. In his ears, the system's nagging warnings were still droning on. He didn't hesitate and directly clicked on that impossibly handsome yet emotionlessly cold Ringbo Jegan. Impatient, he urged the system to start the instance at once. Cut the crap and open the door. Even Zidu is dating men already. Who cares about this? A flash of intense light. He opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was a man so handsome it was excessive. This was the identity he had chosen for the instance. The Demon Lord, Duji. Inside the blood crystal, Bulachi would become him. The objective was very clear. To capture the heart of the person Duji cared about the most, Ringbo Jegan. Duji's memories surged into him like a tide, and Bulachi's consciousness gradually overlapped with his. He was forced to receive everything Duji had gone through. The heavens and the demon realm were at each other's throats, and war could break out at any moment. Yet Duji, the revered Azura demon, and Ringbo, the leader of the heavenly clan ruling the 3 realms, had become brothers who would entrust their lives to each other. Duji regarded Ringbo as a once-in-10,000 years kindred spirit. He trusted Ringbo almost without reservation, not even caring about the boundary between immortal and demon. The two often drank together by the banks of Ruoshue, beside the white jade pavilion. Ringbo was as cold as frost, yet he possessed a divine beauty that made it impossible to look away. And the demon lord Duji also did not know when he had started to harbor thoughts toward Ringbo that he should not have. This time, the two of them sat down again to drink and talk, and Duji wanted to take the opportunity to probe Ringbo's heart. But Ringbo brought up that the heavenly realm had no powerful figure like Duji, who could suppress the 3 realms and sit in command, and he was worried the heavenly realm would lose. As soon as these words fell, Duji's face instantly flushed scarlet. His heartbeat sped up uncontrollably. What Ringbo meant was, he needed him. Now was the best time to confess. The Azura clan does not distinguish by gender. For Ringbo, he was willing to take on a female body and become his wife. Duji set down his wine cup. Face flushed, he spoke in a roundabout way, saying that the war between their two clans was also a last resort. If Ringbo were willing to enter into a political marriage with a woman of the Azura clan, perhaps it could slow this war. Before Duji even finished speaking, Ringbo rejected him outright. That single line, "Immortals and demons cannot stand on the same side," made Duji almost unable to remain seated on the spot. He lifted his wine cup to hide his panic, forced himself to appear calm, and looked at Ringbo. "If immortals and demons cannot stand on the same side, then why, my lord, do you drink here with me, and why are you on such good terms with me?" Faced with the questioning, Ringbo's expression did not change. His tone was calm yet forthright. Duji was different from other monsters and demons. He regarded Duji as a confidant. "Only a confidant?" Duji let out a self-mocking, cold laugh. "Confidant? Indeed." As if following his words, he said, "Confidants are rare. I truly wish to drink and talk merrily with you every day." At the instant Duji lowered his head, Ringbo's gaze suddenly darkened. He suddenly stood up, obsession in his eyes, even a bit of madness. "Brother Duji is willing to drink and make merry with me every day. This sentence of yours, is it true? Immortals and demons have been enemies since ancient times. Yet the demon lord Duji time and again sat face to face drinking with Ringbo, the leader of the celestial tribe. Both of them bore the appearance of heavenly beings, but even Duji could not tell from when he began to develop feelings for Ringbo that he should not have. Seeing that Ringbo actually doubted this bond, Duji hurriedly slapped the table and stood up to explain, "With the friendship between you and me, do you truly not trust me?" Ringbo turned his back to Duji, his gaze cold and dark, yet his heart even heavier. He said he was worried about the safety of all living beings in the three realms, putting on a righteous air. Duji had thought he was only worried about the impending war between immortals and demons. Just as he was about to tell Ringbo the good news that could ease the war, that the Azura king had already agreed he would take on a female form and marry Ringbo himself. In his heart he suppressed his voice and thought, "Even if Ringbo cannot accept it now, he will definitely fall in love with me in the future." But before these words could leave his mouth, a strong wave of dizziness suddenly exploded in Duji's mind. Duji's pupils shrank sharply. There was something wrong with the cup of wine Ringbo had handed him. He could not believe it. The confidant he trusted most had actually drugged the wine. Forcing down his anger, Duji stared at the man before him and questioned, "What do you mean by this, my lord?" Only then did Ringbo Jegan turn around, the gloom in his eyes terrifying. Yet his tone carried a morbid gentleness. "Did you not wish to drink and make merry with me every day? Unfortunately, you are always the strongest demon god of the Shura clan. How could I possibly not be afraid?" Ringbo's eyes were filled with naked aggression. He raised his hands, cupping Duji's face in both palms as if to confirm something. "But what if I completely remake you into someone of the celestial realm? That would be different. From then on, all three realms could be at ease, and you and I could be together every month in the same place." Duji was chilled by this mad thought of his. He had treated Ringbo as the most precious person. Yet Ringbo, in the end, Duji still couldn't withstand the effect of the drug. Ringbo caught his collapsing body in a tight embrace. The cold, sinister look in his eyes changed in an instant. They were filled with sorrow and guilt. "I'm sorry, Duji." As soon as Bulachi opened his eyes, he found himself lying in a cold, damp secret chamber. "Isn't this the very room where Duji was dismembered by Ringbo? Don't tell me I'm this unlucky." What was worse, his transmigration mission actually started from this part of the plot. In this place, Ringbo didn't just kill Duji. He even chopped off Duji's head. He tore out the tendons, stripped the bones, taking the body apart into scattered pieces. Before the horrific memories had ended, Ringbo's icy voice suddenly came from ahead. "Brother Duji, you shouldn't have woken up so early." No one knew when Ringbo had appeared. Duji's whole body felt nailed in place, unable to move. He could only feel intense terror, Ringbo closing in on him step by step. With every step the footsteps drew nearer, his heart sank a little further. He's here, and he's even come with a knife." Ringbo's expression was dark and so cold it carried no emotion at all. Facing the eyes of his former confidant, he could still say calmly, "This is not a pretty scene." Before Duji could speak, Ringbo went on talking to himself. "Soon you won't remember anything. I will remake you into one of the heaven realm." As soon as he finished, he somehow produced a dagger from nowhere. "Only then can your wish come true." Duji stared in panic at the dagger that was about to stab into him, and couldn't help complaining inwardly. "This bastard, he likes you." He doesn't want to be remade by you. The dagger was about to fall on his neck. If he didn't do something now, he was really done for. At the critical moment, he went all in. I like you. Those 4 words alone forcibly stopped Ringbo's movement. It was as if he had misheard. His voice tightened. What did you say? To save his life, Doogie put on an infatuated face and stared straight at him. I've always been in love with you, Ringbo. I'm saying, I've always been in love with you, Ringbo. Doogie, the genius demon lord of the Azura realm, my sworn brother, is actually confessing to me. He likes me? Such a blunt confession from Doogie was like a heavy hammer, slamming hard into Ringbo's heart. He didn't even notice that the person on the bed had long since quietly recovered. Ringbo's legs suddenly went weak. He staggered back, and the dagger fell to the ground with a clang. His mind was filled entirely with the past. The good times when the two of them first met and came to truly know each other. Doogie was his only confidant, and also the brother he trusted most. Yet it was Pan, this very person, the one he most wanted to kill, most wanted to turn into a puppet, the one he planned to exploit until the very end, who had actually been silently loving him all along. The drug's effect had long since worn off, and Doogie's body had fully recovered. He sat up and stared at Ringbo Jegan, whose thoughts were spinning out of control. He wavered. This was now the only chance to break through Ringbo, and even if it meant giving up his body, he was willing. Doogie stood up and suddenly lunged at Ringbo, and before the other could react, he pressed his lips to his. This kiss was not gentle at all, nor was it long. It was short, urgent, like an impulse. The second their tongues touched, Ringbo's heart suddenly began to race wildly, and the sensation on his tongue forced his face to flush in an instant. Ringbo snapped awake, raised his hand to push Doogie away, yet still clutched tightly at the hem of his clothes, his gaze chaotically disturbed. What are you trying to do? You think this trick will work on me? Faced with the questioning, Doogie did not explain. Instead, he acted so wronged it seemed real. I know, we're both men. I'm from the Azura clan and you're from the Celestial clan. Of course you look down on me. Ringbo was led astray by that line, as if he had forgotten what he'd wanted to do in the first place. He had never seen Doogie like this, so fragile. Flustered, he hurried to explain. No, I've always treated you as my best brother. I toured you. Halfway through his words, Ringbo suddenly stopped. A second later, he realized this development seemed completely wrong. After listening to his explanation, Doogie almost fell silent on the spot. You treat me as your best brother, yet you still want to turn me gay? Seeing the atmosphere instantly freeze, Doogie immediately replied, but what I want is more than just being your brother. Ringbo's thoughts were thrown into chaos by him again. His expression clearly flustered for a moment, as if trying to hide something. What a joke. Immortals and demons are irreconcilable enemies. Not to mention we're both men. But seeing that Ringbo did not push him away, Doogie instead answered in a calm tone. Stop pretending. Can you guarantee that you don't feel even a little moved by me? Ringbo was still stubborn, so Doogie simply yanked off his outer robe, revealing his clean collarbone. And Ringbo actually didn't stop him. He grew bolder, lifting his long leg to hook around Ringbo's waist. The two of them were now pressed very close, tightly wrapped in each other's arms. Doogie's gaze burned, yet carried a trace of shyness. If you really don't feel anything, do you dare to try once? Try it with me. His already handsome face, paired with this almost seductive expression, formed a sharp contrast with the domineering demon lord he showed in front of others. With just one look, Ringbo felt as if his heart skipped a beat. That face was so close it was almost touching his. He began to waver, but Doogie knew very well that Ringbo would not spare him just because of a few words. Ringbo was a ruthless man who never picked and chose his methods. Since the killing intent had already arisen, his situation was still dangerous. In order to make Ringbo completely abandon the idea of killing him, Doogie decided to use his body to disrupt his cultivation and state of mind. What, are you afraid when it comes to me? With a trace of nervousness, he deliberately provoked Ringbo. Although this guy was scum, that face of his was indeed handsome. Doogie figured he could still tolerate it. He fixed his gaze on Ringbo's hesitation and awkwardness, not looking away. Doogie decided to add more fuel to the fire. He tilted his head slightly and deliberately put on a disdainful expression. Heh, forget it. So this is all the great emperor who rules the 3 realms is capable of. An emperor who had cultivated the path of ruthlessness and maintained abstinence for so many years. How could he possibly endure such brazen teasing and provocation? As soon as the words fell, Ringbo suddenly clamped Doogie's chin, lowered his head, and kissed him viciously. The sweetness between their lips instantly ignited the fire he had suppressed for years. Ringbo tore off his outer robe and met the kiss without yielding. What do you take me, Ringbo Jegan, for? This little thing, I can do it. From childhood, I have cultivated the path of ruthlessness, without emotion or desire. Now that the great Tao is complete, it's just right that today, I use you to attain enlightenment." Thinking he had successfully preserved his life, Doogie finally let out a sigh of relief. He still didn't know the real trouble was only just beginning. All he was thinking was that as long as he captured Ringbo's heart next, this dungeon run would be stable. Doogie raised his hand and pressed down on the hand Ringbo was reaching out with. Unhurriedly, he revealed the secret of the Azura clan. Our Azura clan is hermaphroditic. Once we meet the person we truly love, we will choose our gender for him. Ringbo, the reason I came to you today is, I originally wanted to tell you, I want to become a woman for you. That sentence fell right beside his ear, and it shook Ringbo into speechlessness even more than when Doogie said he liked him. Ringbo hadn't expected that for his sake. Doogie would actually be willing to go this far, while he himself was still thinking about dealing him a vicious blow, thinking of using him up to the very end. Ringbo only felt a sharp pain in his chest. He kissed him again, no longer as forceful as before, but with a tenderness full of pity. The car was going too fast, so we'll just skip 50,000 kilometers here. Ringbo looked at those handsome, hazy eyes. How strange. How had he never noticed before that Doogie was this deadly? So tempting it made one want to swallow him whole. Ringbo had no intention of letting him go this time. The demon lord had graciously extended the invitation so rarely. His movements did not slow in the slightest. His stamina was absurdly good. Looking at Doogie beneath him, cheeks flushed red and begging for mercy again and again, it was as if he were responding to Doogie's initial provocation. For someone called the war god of the demon realm, this is it? I'm not even done enjoying myself yet. Ringbo's face slowly drew closer to Doogie. His eyes could not hide his desire, the sense of aggression pressing down so hard it took one's breath away. His voice low and hoarse. Next, what should I do with you? To tease an abstinent emperor lord who has been pure for tens of thousands of years, the price has never been something an ordinary person can bear. But in order to clear a route for a character, if you want to win his heart, you must first learn to read the target of the strategy. Yet in this drama, Blood Crystal, the hardest character to read is probably the Emperor Lord Ringbo. He killed Doogie, and even remade Doogie into a puppet that belonged to him alone. He pampered Doogie, stuffing the strongest weapons into Doogie's hands, and wouldn't allow anyone to get close to Doogie. That forceful possessiveness all showed that Ringbo had long since developed feelings for Doogie. What Doogie couldn't understand most was that since Ringbo clearly had feelings, why did he still do such a terrible thing to Doogie? Doogie was still distracted, trying to sort out this tangled mess of a relationship. In the next second, he realized that Ringbo had sealed him with a spell. Doogie's gaze went unfocused. His cheeks flushed even redder, and he softly begged Ringbo to undo it for him. Doogie like this made Ringbo's heart slam violently. For Doogie's body, Ringbo gave rise to a desire so deep it was out of control. He couldn't believe that he could actually be moved by Doogie to such an extent. From childhood to now, Ringbo had cultivated the path of ruthlessness. For tens of thousands of years, he had already refined away his emotions and desires bit by bit. Yet now, the lust that should have dispersed had instead returned, clear as day. So why was it that he just couldn't withstand even Doogie's casual teasing? What was worse was that the person in front of him was still his sworn brother. Doogie had no idea how many twists and turns Ringbo's heart had already gone through. He only saw Ringbo's expression suddenly darken, that ruthless aura like it would devour him in the very next second. 10,000 kilometers of dashcam footage are omitted here. Ringbo lowered his eyes to look at the once all-powerful, arrogant demon venerable war god beneath him. He was his brother and also his one and only confidant. But at this moment, Doogie actually showed such fatally adorable behavior. On Doogie, Ringbo tasted a feeling he had never experienced before. This kind of Doogie made him want to completely possess him. He wanted Doogie to belong to him alone, even wanted to hold everything about Doogie in his hands. The possessiveness and desire for control in Ringbo's eyes looked like they were about to overflow. In the dim room, only Doogie's intermittent pleas for mercy remained. The price of completely draining an emperor lord who had been abstinent for tens of thousands of years was 3 days and 3 nights. Doogie only felt like he had been run over by a cart, his whole body weak, his legs still trembling. He supported himself against the wall as he returned to the Azura clan. Seeing the guards all staring at him with eyes full of worship, Doogie's expression darkened, and he forced out 2 dry laughs. He couldn't help cursing in his heart at a certain someone whose physical stamina was absurd. He felt completely hollowed out, and luckily he was the demon lord. Otherwise he would have been ruined long ago. Damn it, he was at least the demon lord, the strongest combat power in the 3 realms, Yet he was actually done in by a man, but the demon lord's legs were so weak that his walking looked like he was pushing himself to keep up a pace, which in his subordinates' eyes became proof of diligent martial training. The guards gazed emotionally at his departing back. Lord Demon Lord does everything for us. How great he is. Hearing that Duji had returned, Ashura rushed over immediately. As for Duji's bedchamber, he never allowed anyone to step even half a step inside. Hurrying all the way through, he directly shouted all the guards away. The blood on Ashura body was wiped off as he came over and smeared onto the clothes of a guard beside him. The guard lowered his head to look at the bloodstain on his cuff, and his face instantly turned pale. This was the blood of Ashura new favorite. All because that favorite had asked one more question. Between me and Lord Duji, who is more beautiful? The next second, he was personally killed by Ashura and thrown out to feed the demonic beasts. The king said that was an insult to the demon venerable. Ashura was cold and ruthless, and his gentleness would be reserved for the demon venerable alone. Ashura stepped into the hall and saw Duji lying on his side on the couch. His eyes were tightly closed, yet that face so beautiful it defied male or female still made people want to sink into it. Ashura only felt that with every step he took closer, his heart beat a little faster. His Adam's apple bobbed. He couldn't help it and swallowed once. His palm fell lightly on Duji's shoulder, and he forcibly pressed down all the murderous aura on his body. In a tone of gentleness that hardly sounded like his own, he said, "Where did you go? Why didn't you tell me? The heavenly realm and the demon realm are about to go to war, and you're still making friends with a celestial being. I'm afraid he'll hurt you." Yet his gaze happened to fall on Duji's collarbone. That glaring hickey made his pupils suddenly dilate. In the next instant, his reason completely snapped. Ashura suddenly grabbed Duji's shoulder in one fierce motion. The pain from his shoulder made Duji frown. Only then did Duji open those weary eyes. Ashura whole body radiated killing intent as he loomed over, staring at him darkly, his voice so cold it was almost rigid. "Who did you sleep with? Was it Ringbo?" This overstepping remark made Duji's expression instantly turn cold. "It's none of your business, let go." There were still traces of someone else on Duji's body, and Ashura was already on the verge of losing control, but what truly pushed him over the edge was Duji's indifferent attitude. He felt as if he had fallen into ice. So cold he was trembling. Why did he have to treat him like this? Duji had clearly promised to be his queen. On his deathbed, the previous Ashura handed the heart-locking jade to him. That was a part of Ashura heart. And the previous demon lord had already fallen. The new demon lord would be born in the Sea of Solitaries. As soon as the demon lord was born, the heart-locking jade had to be used to lock up his heart. This was Ashura curse, and also the fate of the king. To obtain that power of the demon lord, the strongest in all three realms, to protect the Azura clan, the price was the king's true heart. After his father the king fell, he guarded this place, waiting for the new demon lord to be born. Duji was so beautiful that he fell in love with him at first sight. This powerful and beautiful demon lord would one day be bound by shackles made from Ashura heart. The young Ashura clenched the heart-locking jade, but what he truly wanted was never power. It was Duji's sincere heart. The newborn Duji understood nothing yet. He was so beautiful that one could not even tell his gender. Ashura gently lifted his chin and answered his question. "Who am I?" "You are the demon lord Duji, the guardian war god of my Azura clan, and also my one and only queen." From the moment he was born, he had already recognized Duji as his queen. But now, Duji actually dared to be with someone else. "You are my queen." Ashura, like a madman, clamped down hard on Duji's shoulders. The words queen made Duji instantly forget to struggle, because he remembered that in this drama, he and Ashura didn't have a romantic plot at all. Could this be a hidden storyline? There was a terrifying obsession suppressed in Ashura eyes. Where exactly did he touch you? Duji completely couldn't understand why he would be this furious. It was as if the Ashura king had been holding back for far too long. He freed one hand and directly reached under Duji's robe. The baleful aura grew heavier, mingled with a desire he had hidden away for a long time. His voice was hoarse and icy. "Did he touch you here?" That strange sensation crashed against Duji's bottom line again and again. His cheeks burned, his body carrying the post-hangover fatigue and weakness. "Stop it. Don't touch me. The alcohol has worn off. My power has returned. You are no match for me." Mad jealousy tore Ashura reason to shreds, and he directly sealed Duji's lips. Duji's pupils shrank violently. He was being forcibly kissed. He desperately suppressed the urge to go berserk. "This bastard is my king. I cannot raise my hand against the king." Ashura forcibly turned Duji's averted face back. The kiss deepened once again, the clear, tingling sensation of their lips and teeth pressed together making her go numb. And Doogie only felt that her bottom line was being repeatedly crushed by him. The lips that were being blocked still issued a muffled warning. Wong, please stop. I don't want to lay a hand on you. The first time he truly tasted the warmth between Doogie's lips and teeth, Ashurwang completely lost his mind. Doogie, my Doogie. You belong only to me, the demon lord. So many people say they love me, love my power and status, but the only one I want is you. I've been suppressing my desire all along, waiting for you to grow up, waiting for you to become female for me. Ashurwang's thoughts churned back and forth. I love him so much, yet he actually still got involved with that ringbow. Ashurwang suddenly rose to his feet, his eyes lighting up with a bloodthirsty desire. It's my fault. I shouldn't suppress myself any longer. Like a vicious wolf that had waited far too long, he just stared fixedly at Doogie under the couch, whose face was full of terror. I want you right now. You will belong only to me. Looking at that face drawing closer and closer, the fury in Doogie's chest finally could not be held back. Demonic energy gathered madly in an instant, carrying a terrifying explosive force, directly blasting the king who was pressing down on him away. He clamped one hand tightly around the king's neck. With just a little more force, that fragile neck bone would snap on the spot. At this moment, demonic energy coiled all around Doogie, his anger pouring out completely. I said, don't touch me. Do you not understand? Who do you think I am? One of those defenseless playthings in your palace. Ashurwang, however, seeing his ferocious and arrogant demeanor, not only did not feel afraid, but instead had his eyes filled with a dense, undissolvable love. This was the guardian of the demon realm, Demon Lord Doogie.
So domineering, so proud.
He stared blankly at the beast-like man before him, the corners of his lips slowly lifting. You will definitely be mine. The guards heard the commotion and rushed in, and at first glance they crashed right into the scene of the demon lord gripping Ashurwang by the throat. Doogie turned his face to the side and swept a cold gaze over the aggressively charging crowd. His clothes were disheveled, one shoulder half exposed. Together with that face so beautiful it was hard to tell male from female. Too beautiful. It directly stunned all the guards into a daze. The still somewhat clear-headed leader immediately grabbed Doogie's wrist in one move. He, as the demon lord assigned to protect the king, actually dared to offend his superior. As he spoke, he ordered people to drag Doogie out, but was violently pushed away by Ashurwang raising his hand. In his eyes, there was only Doogie. What dissatisfaction do you have with this king? If you want the entire 3 realms, this king can conquer them all for you, as long as you agree to marry me. These words, so blunt that they left no room for retreat, made Doogie freeze on the spot. So this guy actually did like him. He had come here precisely in order to win over Ringbo Jegan. Yet the biggest obstacle at the moment was the war between the 2 clans. Thinking of this, the corners of Doogie's lips tightened slightly as he asked in a low voice, King, do you truly like me? Having, for the first time, waited for Doogie to respond to him head-on, Ashurwang almost immediately wanted to prove that his feelings for Doogie were no joke. Doogie assumed that signature pose from his past life, pride laced with a hint of seduction. Then prove it to me. I want you to withdraw your troops from the heavenly realm. On the side of the heavenly realm, Ringbo was covered in wounds, utterly wretched, kneeling below the main hall. From above came the judgment of the highest authority. Ringbo, you cultivate the ruthless art. You should have been pure and without desire, yet you have broken the taboo of lust, and it is the utterly rebellious lust between men. Do you admit your crime? He was the heavenly emperor, who had cultivated the path of ruthlessness since childhood. Yet for the demon lord he personally shattered the taboo of lust. The voice of judgment from the top of the great hall fell again. Ringbo, do you admit your crime? Immortals must remain pure and unstained. You, as the emperor of the gods, have indulged in debauchery with another, and that other is a man. I ask you, do you admit your crime? Ringbo did not even lift his eyes. He merely lowered his gaze, silent. Seeing him so unwilling to bow his head, that dignified voice before the hall finally could no longer suppress its fury. With a roar that came down together with the shadow of a whip, you still do not repent. The moment the lash struck skin and flesh, sharp pain exploded, and only then did Ringbo seem to be forcibly dragged back to reality. Even now, he could not understand. How on earth had all of this happened? How he could possibly have joined in pleasure with a man? All the more so since that day, his original intention had been to kill Doogie, to the point of planning to dismember him, and then, yet in the end, things had pan turned out like this instead. As the whip lashed down on his back again and again, Ringbo's back was already flayed open, flesh and blood turned over. The searing pain tore his consciousness apart bit by bit. His vision darkened, yet he was still desperately thinking. Where exactly had it all gone wrong? From the moment he ascended to the Divine Lord's throne, he made a vow to exterminate the demon clan and protect the heavens. He was a prodigy of the Tao. But defeating Duji, the demon lord who possessed the greatest combat power in all three realms, was anything but easy. The reason the demon clan dared to clash head-on with the heavens was precisely because they had a god of war, the demon lord Duji. According to rumor, the demon lord was vicious and hideous, and everyone wanted to kill him. Yet he was so powerful that no one could do anything to him. Fortunately, the demon lord had not been incarnated for long. Though he looked like an adult man, his mind was very simple. Compared with those great powers of the heavens, he was more like a child. So Ringbo decided to use a stratagem to secretly get rid of him. Assassination was originally a despicable method, but for the peace of the three realms, Ringbo was willing to throw away his bottom line as well. Thus he came to the Sea of Shaluo Blossoms where the demon lord Duji often appeared. He planned to give Duji the divine artifact, the earth-fixing sword, using friendship as a pretext to first gain his trust, then look for a chance to strike. An extremely oppressive demonic aura suddenly surged toward him from behind. Ringbo spun around sharply. The demonic aura on that person was so overbearing it nearly forced one to bend at the waist. Ringbo had always heard his teacher say that demons were hideous and vicious. Yet the person in the tree was so stunningly beautiful it was blinding, with a kind of demonic, wanton glamour, as if the beauty of both men and women had been fused into a single face. Uncontrollably, Ringbo walked closer, and in the next second, he saw that person in the tree close his eyes tightly, and his body sway a little. As if he were about to fall, Ringbo even forgot why he had come here. His heartbeat suddenly went wild. In a panic, he opened his arms and steadily caught the person in his embrace. Looking at the drowsy person in his arms, that breathtaking beauty so close at hand made Ringbo's heart skip a beat. A faint shyness colored his face as he stared at the other's slowly opening eyes. The moment he sensed the celestial aura beside him, the demon lord struck out almost by instinct. That power was absurdly strong, and Ringbo's heart jolted. This person is too powerful. If not for the divine sword Dinkuin, I'd probably be gutted today. Only when Dugu fully opened his eyes did he realize he had injured someone by mistake. He immediately grasped the other's hand tightly, his tone full of apology. "I'm sorry. I sensed your celestial aura, and in my grogginess I counterattacked on reflex. I'll take responsibility." Clearly, Ringbo was startled by how urgent the man in front of him sounded. Take responsibility for what? The warmth in the other's palm only flustered him more, and he hurriedly replied, "It's nothing." Before Ringbo could react, the other man suddenly yanked open the front of his robes. In the next second he leaned in, pressing his lips to that wound on Ringbo's chest, as if to pin down Ringbo's struggle. "Don't be polite. My saliva has healing properties. I injured you by mistake. This is what I should do." That soft, delicate sensation on his chest once again set Ringbo's face ablaze. Ashamed and uncomfortable, he finally couldn't hold back. He raised his hand and directly pinched the other man's chin. "Enough! Who exactly are you?" The man whose chin was being pinched wasn't angry. His expression was blank yet earnest as he replied, "Demon Lord Duji. I am the Demon Lord Duji. What is your name?" Ringbo stared at that exceedingly close, stunningly beautiful face and froze for half a second. "I am Ringbo Jegan." Hearing the reply, Duji's eyes lit up, and he moved even closer by a few degrees. "Ringbo, I like this name. I'm so bored here all by myself. Could you come keep me company more often?" Ringbo only felt that those eyes were shining so brightly they were almost burning, filled entirely with expectation. Staring straight at him like that, yet Ringbo slowly lowered his gaze. Being stared at like this, Ringbo lowered his eyes, the flush on his cheeks not yet fully faded. He has only been incarnated for 20 years, and compared to me, who has lived for tens of thousands of years, he really is still just a child. The hand that had been gripping the Dinkuin sword tightly suddenly loosened. "Let it go." "All right, brother Duji." Receiving this definite answer, the expectation in Duji's eyes instantly turned into a genuine smile, revealing two small, sharp tiger teeth. Even his voice couldn't hide the joy as it bubbled out. "Great, then from now on we're good brothers." Brother Ringbo, looking at that utterly innocent and defenseless face, Ringbo's heart gave another violent tremor. From then on, Ringbo and Duji were almost drinking together and chatting happily every day. Only the two of them. In fact, Ringbo didn't like drinking, but Duji did. His alcohol tolerance was clearly very poor, yet he insisted on putting on a brave face, often drinking himself into a drunken collapse. Such a Doogie made Ringbo feel a very cute, so cute it threw his heart into chaos. Ringbo's mind was filled only with that face, cheeks flushed pink and eyes hazy with drunkenness. Whenever he thought of how one day Doogie would join with someone from the Azura clan and betray Z, Ringbo's heart grew so restless it almost hurt. If I were to reshape his body once more, I could erase his entire past, give him a new identity, and turn him into someone I can control. In this way, he would belong only to me forever. Ringbo seemed unable to feel the pain of the lashes on his back. He jolted awake. What am I thinking? So, this is what I've always thought deep down? Do I just want him? No, I want all of him, his soul, his body. That desire to monopolize him felt as if it had long been carved into his bones. The moment he realized this, a fishy sweetness surged in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His true chi rampaged, and he completely lost control. This was the true chi of the heartless art running in reverse. The presiding adjudicator fixed his gaze on the out-of-control Ringbo Jegan, forcibly roused his own true power, and shouted urgently, Ringbo Jegan, the true chi of the heartless art is reversing. Calm your mind at once. Love and affection are demonic delusions. You are merely bewitched by them. Let go of your inner demon. Ringbo's mind was already a complete mess. Demonic delusions? My feelings are demonic delusions? Yes, this must only be demonic delusion. Otherwise, how could I possibly harbor such thoughts about my own brother? In the next second, the frenzied true chi exploded with a roar, its impact almost tearing everything apart. It was only demonic delusion. After that single, extremely powerful burst of true chi, Ringbo was covered in wounds, but his aura finally began to stabilize bit by bit. The old adjudicator's expression was calm as he stared fixedly at the weakened Ringbo beneath the throne. Yet his tone was resolute. Since it had been confirmed as demonic delusion, it had to be purged. Doogie must be killed. Doogie is at this moment quietly sneaking into the Celestial clan. All because Ashura proposed a condition for agreeing to withdraw his troops, as long as Doogie steals the Celestial clan's Hongmeng furnace. Doogie hacked down dozens of guards along the way, his mind almost spinning out. Where on earth is the Hongmeng furnace? If he had known it would be such a hassle, he should have just chopped Ashura directly back then. That would have been simpler. But rumor has it the Hongmeng furnace can greatly enhance one's cultivation. What does he want this thing for? Could it be he intends to use it to defeat me? Yet according to this world setting, he himself is supposed to be the ceiling of combat power in the three realms. Forcing down those strange thoughts, he knows that as long as he steals the Hongmeng furnace, he can be together with Ringbo. His gaze darkens, and he happens to see Ringbo just stepping into the water. This is the water of ruthlessness. As long as there is still desire in one's heart, it will scorch a person's skin. Ringbo grits his teeth, feeling that bone-deep burning pain on his skin. He really must not see him again. He had just made up his mind. The sudden sound from behind makes him jolt violently. Brother Ringbo. Doogie, unable to suppress his joy, calls out his name. Who knew his foot would slip? He is just about to topple into the pool. Ringbo reacts extremely fast, catching him in one swift motion. His gaze crashes into that face, so close at hand and yet excessively beautiful. The burning pain on his skin instantly intensifies by several degrees. He had clearly already decided not to see him again, to forget him, yet the person is right in front of him. Ringbo only felt the merciless pool water burn even more fiercely. His brows furrowed tightly, and he let out a muffled groan of pain. Seeing Doogie's face full of worry, Ringbo forcibly pushed his discomfort down, but his tightly knitted brows still did not relax. I'm fine. How did you get in? Doogie looked very pleased with himself. I knocked out all the gatekeepers. No one will know I was here. Hearing this, Ringbo suddenly turned his face away, his voice as cold as ice. Go back. Don't come again. Doogie had no idea why he suddenly changed his expression. Just a moment ago he was still. When Ringbo turned around and faced away from him, Doogie finally saw the mottled whip marks on his back. Doogie grabbed Ringbo's left arm in one swift motion. What happened to you? How dare they beat you? The warmth coming from that arm made him lose himself. But in the next second, Jijin's command from the Great Hall trial exploded again by his ear. Kill him, kill Doogie. Ringbo flung him off sharply, turned and took 2 steps to pull some distance between them, not even looking back. It has nothing to do with you. I still need to cultivate. Go. Seeing him suddenly turn cold, sharp as a knife, a nameless burst of anger shot up in Doogie's chest. Doogie quickly caught up and yanked Ringbo's arm. He bent down and pressed his lips to the whip wounds on Ringbo's back, licking over them inch by inch. As Doogie's saliva touched them, the wounds actually began to heal little by little. Yet that faint, fragmented sensation of friction on his back made Ringbo's cheeks burn scarlet. His heart felt out of control, pounding fast and hard. The more his emotions surged, the more Jijin's voice pressed in on his ears like a curse. I want you to kill Doogie. Only by killing him. Only then can you wake up and relearn the heartless art. I have already secretly sent people to assassinate. Ringbo learned that his master had sent people to assassinate Doogie. Ringbo suddenly stopped being silent. All his pride and stubbornness shattered, and he panicked so hard his chest tightened. No, you mustn't. This disciple has not fallen for him, but this panic was far too obvious. No one would believe it. Jijin's daughter Yaoji had long since secretly promised herself to Ringbo, intent on proving he had not fallen for the demon lord. Jijin forced him to form a cultivation partnership with Yaoji and to marry her 3 days later, only then agreeing not to target Doogie anymore. Ringbo forced all his unwillingness down his throat, yet his fists still clenched uncontrollably. He spoke in an icy voice, as if squeezing the words out from between his teeth. This disciple is willing to marry Yaoji. I will kill Doogie. I will forget Doogie. Yet, in his mind, last night's promise insisted on flashing by. Ringbo once again pushed away the person behind him. He did not dare turn back. His voice pressed down the pain, and also his resolve. I am immortal. You are demon. We are destined to be enemies. I even want to kill you. I truly even want to kill you. Doogie did not want this hard-won closeness between them to just scatter in such a muddled way, so he hurriedly cut Ringbo off. I know, Ringbo. I understand you're not trying to hurt me. You're just carrying too many burdens. I know you care about me. You didn't mean it. Even though he clearly knew he would hurt him, he still moved closer. At that instant, the resentment around Ringbo's whole body suddenly gathered into a mass. He suddenly clamped down on Doogie's neck, the space between his brows tightening, his expression darkening to pitch black in an instant. You know I want to kill you, and you still dare to follow me? Is your brain broken? Looking at this face, Ringbo suddenly remembered. At the very moment the blade was about to fall, Doogie had confessed to him. As soon as the truth clicked into place, Ringbo's expression grew even gloomier. Wait, could it be that you confessed to me just to save your own life? All those things before, were they all part of your plan in advance? Only then did Doogie suddenly realize he had let something slip. Hey, that. No, listen to me. Let me explain. Ringbo's face grew even darker. His voice pressed low and cold. You cunning bastard. Don't tell me that even now, your heart still isn't mine? The more he thought about it, the harsher he felt, and the aura around him instantly turned so cold it seemed to freeze. He couldn't stand it. He wanted Doogie's body, and he also wanted Doogie's true heart. The originally dim light in his eyes suddenly flared for a moment. He crashed his lips against Doogie's in a rough kiss. Nothing like the gentleness from before. Doogie knew he was truly angry. The more stirred up Ringbo became, the more the skin soaked in ruthless water burned like it was on fire. He let out a muffled groan, his gaze locked firmly on the person in front of him, only to see the other's face full of worry. Ringbo seemed to forget that bone-boring pain, tightening the strength of his hold around him by another degree. You still have the leisure to worry about me? Worry about yourself first. He leaned close to Doogie's face, his breath brushing past, and the desire in his eyes grew heavier. You actually dared to scheme against me. Have you thought about the consequences? I'll you until you break, until even your thoughts spiral out of control. The mighty demon lord, the strongest combat power of the 3 realms, now stood with his battle robe shattered all over the ground. Ringbo's hand fell onto his skin. Every inch felt scalded by fire. Doogie was clearly the strongest combat power in the 3 realms. Yet in this moment he couldn't push away the person before him. Ringbo looked at the person he had pinned beneath him, whose expression was vicious and feral, and a sharp pain stabbed through his heart. Could it be that Doogie truly doesn't love me, and that he is only willing to lower himself to me in order to survive? At this thought, the suffocating knot in Ringbo's chest grew even heavier. He wanted Doogie, not only his body, but also his heart. 8,000 characters are omitted here. What desire brought was not only loss of control, but also the even more merciless burning of the pitiless pool water. By now, the water of the pool beside Ringbo had already turned red in one area. The scars on his back had become even more mottled, yet Ringbo seemed to feel no pain. He stared blankly at the person before him, his thoughts stretching far away. He is my inner demon. I shouldn't have fallen for him, but the moment I think he might not love me, I can't suppress the anger in my heart. Ringbo's gaze grew increasingly gloomy, the once bright eyes dimming bit by bit. The way he looked at Doogie was filled with a terrifying possessiveness. To have him past, present, and future, in the end, reason still prevailed over everything. At this moment, he threw Jijin's warning to the back of his mind and completely forgot his earlier promises. The thought of possessing him slipped out of control along with his body. This person can only belong to me. Every movement he made was fiercely bitten by the burning pain of the merciless water. But as long as he looked at that flushed face in front of him, Ringbo couldn't help wanting to be even harsher, as if he had to punish him until he remembered. Ringbo was completely drowned in the madness of desire. My brother, my inner demon, my pain. Yet even if it was like being tortured in hell, I still feel pleasure. A muffled moan, forcibly suppressed, sounded by his ear. Even if he doesn't like me, I'll still make sure he can never forget me. The crazed possessiveness in Ringbo's eyes almost solidified in that instant. Please forgive me this last bit of willfulness. 500,000 words are omitted here. Ringbo held the person beneath him tightly in his arms. In this moment, he only wanted to knead Doogie into his own body. His lips pressed to Doogie's ear, and his voice carried the hoarse, low rasp forced down in the aftermath. Doogie, let's just. The pain in Joe's chest was wrenching, agonizing. This wasn't his pain. It was the pain of the true owner of this body. The pain of Doogie's soul. After leaving the celestial realm, in that long corridor, Doogie's back looked lonely and frail. Ringbo's words twined around his ears like a shadow he could never shake off. Let's just go back to being ordinary friends. My feelings for you have already faded. As the strategy executor Bulachi, it was the first time he clearly felt defeated, even helpless. You're really heartbroken, aren't you? Even though you got his body, in the end you still couldn't win his heart. But in his heart, he's not only being tugged by the emotions buried deep in Doogie's soul, it's also mixed with an even deeper, heavier guilt. I'm sorry, Doogie, I failed. Just when he thought there was absolutely no hope left between them, a strong light suddenly flashed behind me. I turned around and finally saw the progress of the strategy on the screen. It said, initial affection level 50%, current affection level 80%, which means that from the very beginning, Ringbo already had feelings for me. Now, it even skyrocketed to 80%. Doogie instinctively raised his hand to cover his face, falling into a silence where he couldn't say a word. So he likes me that much? Just how twisted is this guy? In his mind, that scene of being gently pulled into his arms replayed in a flash. Doogie's cheeks instantly flushed burning red. He couldn't figure it out. Since Ringbo loves him so much, why did he still lie to him? He didn't dwell on it for long. As soon as he looked up, he ran right into the one person he least wanted to see. Ashura didn't waste words. He simply asked with precise restraint, did you get the thing? Doogie didn't want to say even one extra word. The Hongmeng furnace appeared directly in the palm of his right hand. The moment he saw the furnace, Ashura eyes lit up, and the instant Doogie saw his outstretched hand, he immediately withdrew the furnace, his tone as cold as ice. Don't rush. What about the terms you promised me? Seeing Doogie being this guarded against him, Ashura didn't get angry. Instead, he stepped in closer, let out a low hum. This king will, of course, withdraw the troops. But he suddenly leaned in toward Doogie's ear. He abruptly moved in by Doogie's ear, a flash in his eyes as he stared meaningfully at that handsome face. Demon Lord, do you really understand how hypocritical the man you spent that spring night with is? What Ashura said next made Doogie's expression freeze on the spot. He took your body, and then turned around to marry someone else. On the day of the grand wedding between Ringbo Jegan and Fairy Yaoji, all the prominent figures of the three realms came to offer their congratulations, yet Ringbo, one of the protagonists of the event, was full of worries. Yaoji Immortal, standing to the side, shyly stole glances at him, but he was in no mood to respond. There was not the slightest joy of a new marriage, and instead a gloom pressed between his brows that would not disperse. After all, he still had not managed to say it to him. Seeing the heaviness on his face, the Azura king immediately gloated. Ringbo Jegan looking like this is nothing like a joyful wedding. It's more like he's just finished a funeral. Ringbo's air of defeat amused him so much he burst out laughing, and the attendants behind him hurriedly lowered their voices to advise. Your Majesty, be careful, the walls have ears. No sooner had the words fallen than an angry shout came from ahead. Demon Lord Doogie had actually dared to trespass into the wedding. You, as Ringbo Jegan's sworn younger brother, are you really going to destroy your brother's wedding with your own hands? As that fierce, overbearing question crashed down, Doogie's eyes darkened. His tone filled entirely with icy ridicule. Brother! Doogie's appearance made Ringbo's emotions twist so tightly they hurt. He actually felt a fleeting surge of secret delight. But the moment he saw Doogie surrounded on all sides, he couldn't help worrying again. Yet, in the next second, a raging demonic aura exploded without warning. In an instant, the guards encircling Doogie were all dead or wounded. The corner of his mouth corked up, full of mockery and disdain. "I'm not his brother at all. I'm the one he loves most." As soon as the words fell, his gaze locked straight onto Ringbo seated in the chief seat. The instant their eyes crashed into each other, Ringbo felt as if his heart skipped a beat. But that trace of hidden ambiguity had no time to linger at all. Behind Doogie, Jijin silently formed a hand seal. With spiritual power added, the god-slaying arrow flew faster and truer. The arrowhead was now pointing straight at Doogie's back. The embrace behind him carried the scent he knew best. Doogie lifted his eyes and first saw the scarlet dripping onto the ground. The thick smell of rust suddenly rushed into his nose. His gaze moved upward and landed on Ringbo's chest, the arrowhead that had pierced through. Doogie's pupils suddenly dilated. His eyes filled entirely with worry and panic. He carefully supported Ringbo. When his gaze probed a little farther ahead, he finally saw clearly. The culprit was actually Gojojon. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. Demonic energy exploded around him, and he raised his foot, about to charge at Gojojon. Enduring the pain, Ringbo grabbed his arm in one swift motion. He did not mention the arrow he had taken. Instead, he snapped at Doogie, who was standing up for him. "You shouldn't have come here. Now, go back for me." Doogie was unwilling to accept this. Clearly, the one Ringbo loved was him. He must have been threatened by this old man. Yet Ringbo's next words froze Doogie on the spot. "Have you made enough trouble yet? How long are you going to keep deluding yourself? I don't like you. What does my marriage have to do with you?" Doogie felt a sharp pain in his chest, his gaze falling on Ringbo's face, gone paler and paler from blocking the arrow for him. Holding down his anger, he shot back, "You're lying. If you don't like me, then why did you block the arrow for me?" Ringbo fell silent, his eyes darkening as he turned his gaze sideways toward Jijin not far away. He had clearly already laid down a killing formation design specifically to target the Ashura clan. But now he still hasn't made a move. Is he testing me? If I still have feelings for Doogie, he'll kill Doogie immediately, right? The heavens still have formations targeting the Demon Lord. Plus, with Gojojon present, Doogie is isolated and powerless. I absolutely cannot reveal the slightest emotion. Only then can I protect Doogie. Doogie's expression is filled with pain, and Ringbo's hands clamp down hard on his shoulders. He forcibly presses his emotions down, his tone resolute and icy. "Get back! I saved you only because I owed you. Now we're even." Seeing Doogie's face full of confusion, Ringbo unconsciously tightens the strength of his grip. He speaks even more heartless words. "Including our first time, I was also using your feelings for me. You were nothing but a tool for my cultivation of the ruthlessness technique." Doogie's eyes, once like starlight, grow emptier bit by bit, and he trembles as he mutters, "I don't believe it, you're lying. I don't believe it, you're lying. I don't believe it, you're lying." Ringbo strikes a palm onto Doogie's chest. Doogie's body tilts backward uncontrollably. A metallic sweetness immediately surges up his throat. Ringbo lands in front of him, his expression as cold as ice. "Now, do you believe me?" Doogie is in such a sorry state that he doesn't even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Are you serious?" Ringbo clearly has feelings for him, so why has it become like this? To force him to go back, Ringbo hooks his fingers into his hair and gives a fierce yank toward himself. Doogie let out a muffled groan of pain and was thus forced to raise his head to look at him. There was not a trace of emotion to be found in those eyes. Even his tone was so cold it had no warmth. "What kind of thing are you? You think you're worthy of calling me brother?" Doogie still didn't understand. Could the system's judgment have gone wrong? He tried desperately to find some flaw on Ringbo's face. In the end, he still put down that pride he had been stubbornly holding up. He had thought Ringbo had truly fallen in love with him, so it turned out he had just misunderstood. The strategy had failed, hadn't it? "Doogie, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to help you." He braced himself and stood up, forcing out a smile. "I only came to make some noise at the bridal chamber. The joke went a bit too far. I must have scared you." After speaking, he let out two awkward dry laughs. He didn't even dare look at Ringbo's expression, and could only slowly gather back the sorry state he had just been in. He gave the person before him a deep bow and offered his congratulations. "Doogie, Demon Lord of the Ashura clan, hereby congratulates Ringbo Jegan on finding his beloved." With that bow, Doogie directly stirred up Ringbo's emotions, the irritation so strong he could hardly suppress it. He subconsciously clenched the hem of his clothes, yet not a hint of it showed on his face, and his voice was as faint as the wind. "Many thanks." The air between the two of them instantly froze. the awkwardness so stifling it was hard to breathe, and Ashurwang walked over to Duji's side. He raised his hand to wrap an arm around Duji's shoulders, his brows and eyes full of smiles, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Since everything's been laid out, it's just right. I also have an announcement to make. This king is going to marry Duji. As soon as these words fell, the space between Ringbo's brows tightened sharply, and the gloom in his eyes almost overflowed. At this moment, Gojoseon beside him seized the opportunity to speak. Yet his tone was an unquestionable command. Ringbo's wedding has already missed the auspicious hour. It would be better to choose another day and hold a double wedding for both couples. Would that not be even better? Then let the two couples both reside in the heavenly realm, and after 7 days, hold a grand celebration together. They had once been confidants who drank together day after day, laughing late into the night. Later, they laid their feelings bare and drew so close that they could no longer distinguish one from the other. Yet today is their grand wedding day, and the one they are to bow to in the ceremony is, ironically, not each other. With the auspicious hour fast approaching, Ringbo, still bathing in the spiritual pool, remained unhurried, as if nothing mattered to him. But his mind was filled, again and again, only with Duji. Whenever he thought of Duji marrying someone else, his chest grew so tight he could hardly breathe. No, he must not waver again. Ringbo silently recited the heartless mantra in his mind over and over. Yet the resentment in his chest not only failed to disperse, it instead grew heavier and heavier, as if it had taken on solid form. The inner demon gradually took shape, and to his shock, slowly turned into Duji's likeness. It forced him to answer, "Are you really going to watch Duji marry Ashurwang? Are you truly going to do nothing? Is this my heart demon?" He watched helplessly as the Duji formed from his inner demon grew so intimate with Ashurwang that it stung his eyes. Whenever he so much as imagined him entangled with another man, Ringbo's chest felt as if something were blocking it, tight and aching. Even if that was merely a demonic illusion, he still couldn't bear to watch it getting close to someone else right in front of him. He had practically exhausted his strength to disperse the demonic illusion. So this is jealousy. Huh? Jealousy pressed a stifling unwillingness down on Ringbo's heart, and along with it came a loss of control possessiveness. Just as he had barely suppressed his emotions, a servant came to report. The supreme treasure of the heavens, the Hongmeng furnace, had been stolen. Ringbo's gaze instantly sank. Duji had come to the heavens that day. Could it be that the bright red wedding robe slowly slipped from Duji's hands? Originally, it was supposed to be a marriage to Ringbo, but now it seemed he had lost completely. He was actually going to marry Ashurwang. Duji gently picked up the short sword on the desk. With things having come to this point, he was already sick of this instance. Pressing the blade to his neck, he thought, will this end it ahead of time? He'd heard when he first transmigrated that if you die, the mission will end directly. Then he can just work hard to grind points in the next instance. Once his resolve was set, Duji closed his eyes, ready to cut everything off. Yet Ringbo's figure surfaced in his mind. Goodbye, Ringbo. The short sword had only barely grazed his neck when a bead of dark red blood welled up. But just then, a message suddenly came from the guards outside the door. Ashurwang has summoned you. Duji's hand holding the short sword froze, and he cursed inwardly. I finally made up my mind, and now it's messed up again. Forget it, it's gonna end anyway. Might as well part on good terms. In truth, it was because he was afraid of pain. As soon as he stepped into the hall, he saw Ashurwang sitting cross-legged in the inner chamber, his back facing the doorway. Duji folded his arms across his chest, his tone full of impatience. If you have something to say, why wait until the wedding? Say it now, I'm very busy. With his back to him, Ashurwang's lips suddenly curved into a faint smile. Yes, I just can't wait any longer. The moment he finished speaking, before Duji could even react, a golden lock snapped shut around his neck with a sharp click. He couldn't move at all. The formation under his feet pressed down like a mountain, so heavy he could barely breathe. Duji tried to forcibly erupt with demonic power, but in the next second he was shocked to realize he couldn't break free. From above his head came Ashurwang's unhurried voice. How is it? This king has strengthened the formation with the Hongmeng furnace. Duji looked up at him, his face full of shock. How could he be unable to use his strength? The number one warrior of the 3 realms actually locked down by him? Ashurwang held a rose-red bead between his fingers, watching like he was enjoying a joke. You want to ask why my power can suppress yours? His tone carried mockery. If you want to thank someone, thank yourself for stealing the Hongmeng furnace for me. This king's divine power is complete, seizing all the fortune of heaven and earth. invincible under heaven. That dark crimson bead was ruthlessly stuffed into Duji's mouth by him. Duji tried to spit it out, but it was already too late. The bead had long since slid down his throat. Ashurwang had originally not wanted to come to this step, but Duji insisted on giving his true heart to Ringbo, so he would use the heart-locking jade to lock away Duji's heart. Only in this way would Duji completely forget Ringbo. Ashurwang raised his hand to pinch Duji's chin, forcing him so close they were almost touching, his gaze filled with a suffocating possessiveness. You will forget Ringbo and remember only this king. Thinking that Duji would belong to him alone from now on, Ashurwang fixed his eyes on those lips he had coveted for so long, and finally bent down to kiss them. Only when the starlight in Duji's eyes completely went out and his pupils turned empty did Ashurwang finally release his lips. His fingertips slowly brushed across that stunningly beautiful face, a look of lingering satisfaction still in his eyes. Demon Lord, you really are just as I imagined, delicious. At this moment Duji was like a puppet that had lost its soul, letting others do as they pleased. Ashurwang almost couldn't restrain himself from yanking off his outer robe. Years of suppressed self-control snapped completely in that instant. The other parts of the Demon Lord's body will be just as sweet, won't they? He no longer cared whether he could obtain Duji's true heart. Even if only the body remained, he would lock Duji at his side. I, an emperor who cultivates the ruthless path, severing all emotion and desire, actually lost my composure for the Demon Lord, who exists as my enemy. Ringbo checked the primal chaos furnace every day, yet happened to forget on that particular day. That day he had clearly sensed Duji had another purpose, but still forced his vigilance down. Whenever he thought of Duji, Ringbo could not stop his anxiety. His mind was filled entirely with Duji, as if his whole being were sinking into him. I'm not right. My feelings for Duji are actually this strong. I simply can't calm down. In any case, Gojoseon must never find out about this. Otherwise Duji will be in danger. Thinking of this, Ringbo pinched his fingers into the invisibility seal. Inside the Ashurwang palace, Duji's robe was half open, revealing a stretch of snowy white. His hands were tied behind his back with red silk, and a flush stained his face. In front of him was Ashurwang, who had long been itching to move, staring at this so obedient demon lord. Ashurwang wanted to possess him completely. With that thought, his movements followed as he pressed his body down. At this moment, Ringbo could no longer hold back. He even forgot why he had come, and raised his fist in anger, smashing it hard toward Ashurwang's face. Duji lifted his head. Who was this person who had suddenly appeared? Why did he feel the slightest bit familiar? Once he clearly saw the other man's gloomy expression. It was as if there was a bloodthirsty killing intent in his eyes. As the other's movement fell, a sword blade flashed instantly from its sheath. Duji barely hesitated and stepped directly in front of Ashurwang, his tone cold and unfamiliar. Stop! Seeing that guarded posture of his, Ringbo felt a sharp pain in his chest. He was actually protecting him. But Duji's next sentence almost left Ringbo unable to breathe. This is my husband. Who are you? Ringbo could not believe it. Just a moment ago he had been making a scene at his own wedding, loudly declaring that the person he loved was him. Yet now he was calling someone else husband. Ringbo's chest hurt so badly it felt like he was suffocating. Do you really acknowledge him as your husband? Do you really like him? Ringbo just stared fixedly at Duji like that, but he couldn't find any other emotion on Duji's face, only estrangement and hostility. Of course I like my king. If I don't like my king, am I supposed to like you? Go. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. There was not a trace of warmth in Duji's tone, yet every word was like a sharp blade, stabbing fiercely into Ringbo's heart. Ringbo only felt the pain like he was being burned by fire. Even the scorching torment of the water of heartlessness when he first fell in love was not even a 10,000th of what he felt now. His voice was low and hoarse, laden with sorrow. Is that so? So this is what you think? Why would this person's emotions before him affect him? Duji watched him turn away in loneliness, his fleeing figure filled with desolation. Why did his heart ache? Only when Ringbo's figure completely disappeared from his sight did Duji suddenly remember something and want to call out to him. However, the two words Ringbo still never made it past his lips. In the next second, his eyes were covered by the hand behind him. Ashurwang covered his eyes, pain flickering in the depths of his own gaze. Yet he still held him tightly with gentleness and whispered in his ear, "Let him go, demon lord. Your primordial spirit has long since been locked by my heart-locking jade. You can only love me." That voice seemed to carry a bewitching charm. Duji's heart began to waver. That name was gradually erased, and tears slipped down as the memories faded. Two couples were getting married on the same day, Yet Ringbo alone was absent-minded. Duji was sitting right beside him. The two of them both wore bright red wedding robes, yet each was about to bow in marriage to someone else. Ringbo had always thought that pushing Duji away was the best arrangement for him. He suppressed his love only to keep Duji safe. But the wine in his cup had already reached the bottom, and he remained completely unaware, because he loved him. Ringbo swept a glance at Duji beside him from the corner of his eye. But what did any of this count for now? You were clearly the one who pulled me into this first, and now you turn around and fall in love with someone else. He recalled how Duji had curled up in Ashura arms. Ringbo only felt as if his anger had been ignited, instantly blazing through his whole body. He couldn't help clenching his wine cup. Damn, no, I absolutely won't allow it. From beside his ear came the singing cry of, "The auspicious hour has arrived. The wedding begins." Ringbo suddenly stood up. So what if Duji doesn't love me? I am the only one who can protect him. As soon as the cumbersome rituals ended, the hand behind Ringbo's back quietly formed a spell seal. His mind was filled only with Duji's face. Knock him out. Take him away. Lock him up. Ringbo looked toward the direction of Duji's bridal chamber. The gloom in his eyes and the hard, forceful possessiveness there were almost about to solidify into something tangible. He was going to take possession of him completely, from heart to body. What the heart-locking jade locked down was not only Duji's feelings for Ringbo, it also completely locked away the once vibrant heart of Duji. At this moment, Duji sat in the bridal chamber with no joy or sorrow on his face, listening to the maid softly explain. Cover your eyes with red silk, like the bridal veil in the human world. This is the rule of the wedding night. He was waiting for Ashura, waiting for him to personally untie the red silk before his eyes. Yet in the next second, a sudden creak of a door opening came from outside. Duji sat obediently on the marriage bed, motionless, waiting for the king to draw closer step by step. The footsteps came nearer and nearer, yet that person still did not reach out to remove the red silk. A hand gently caressed Duji's face, yet not a single word was spoken. Why say nothing? In the next second, a kiss fell upon Duji's lips, and Duji suddenly tensed up. Those hands were very gentle, slowly roaming over Duji's body. So light it was as if touching a fragile treasure. The lips moved down to Duji's neck, and he unconsciously called out, "Wang." The other's movements abruptly halted. The surrounding temperature seemed to be sucked away in an instant. In the next moment, Duji only felt his body suddenly lift off the ground, his whole person scooped up into someone's arms. Immediately after, a familiar furious roar exploded at the doorway. "Audacious scoundrel, prepare to die." Only then did Duji realize in shock. The person before him was not Ashura at all. A faint smell of blood spread through the air, and Duji suddenly tore off the silk band. What entered his sight was Ringbo staring at him with a dark expression. With the reflection of the blood droplets in his eyes, that gaze appeared even more terrifying. Until Ashura shout came, Duji was jolted awake as if struck by lightning. He raised his hand to strike at Ringbo, but Ringbo's strength suddenly became terrifyingly great. Ringbo grabbed Duji's wrist in one move, his eyes filled with an almost crazed possessiveness. "No matter what happens today, you can't escape. You are mine." When he said this, the baleful aura around him even overshadowed Duji, the demon lord. In that instant, even Duji had his breath shaken still by Ringbo's momentum. Before the spell in Ashura hand could be completed, a sharp blade pierced straight through his chest. Shuddering with pain, he turned around and saw that the person behind him was actually Ringbo. Ringbo had used a clone technique to turn around and stab him in return. As the Ringbo clone behind him dissipated, Ashura body likewise instantly collapsed to the ground. The heart-locking jade's influence was still there, and Duji actually felt a stab of pain in his chest. By instinct, he wanted to break free and rush toward Ringbo. But in the next second, a pair of hands covered Duji's eyes. Ringbo's fingertips pinched into a hypnotic spell. Duji's reaction made a faint ache rise in his heart, yet he still forced his emotions down, his tone chillingly calm. "This is the heavenly realm. You are demons. You can't defeat me." When Duji's eyes finally closed completely, the murderous aura on Ringbo's body only grew heavier. He killed every single person present. Cradling the sleeping Duji in his arms, he walked very slowly, yet still moved step by step toward the door. He was going to take Duji away from here. But as soon as he stepped out of the hall, a loud boom sounded above his head. Just as he stepped out of the hall, another boom sounded overhead, and the formation abruptly rose. Gojojon's vast heaven divine light, proving they had already been discovered. The enormous pressure of the descending formation forced Ringbo directly down to one knee on the ground. Gojojon walked closer step by step, his voice filled entirely with anger. You actually lost control to this extent for the sake of a demon clansman. You have disappointed me too much, enduring that oppressive might that was almost enough to crush a person. Ringbo clenched his jaw tight. He held Doogie in his arms even tighter, and once again lowered that proud head. I love Doogie. In this life, I will only marry him. I beg Jijin to grant us your blessing. Seeing that he still had this unrepentant attitude, Gojijan's anger exploded in an instant. Have you forgotten the ruthless art you cultivate? So-called feelings are nothing more than illusions in your heart. Ringbo's gaze fell on the unconscious person in his arms, his voice so cold it was resolute. Even if it is an illusion, this disciple is willing to be trapped in it for a lifetime. As if he had finally made up his mind, Ringbo suddenly raised his head, his eyes colliding straight with Gojijan's. For the person in his arms, he was willing to give up anything. This disciple is willing to lay down the power of the Emperor Lord, and only asks that your majesty grant this disciple the one and only chance in his life to be willful. As soon as Ringbo finished speaking, the heart-locking jade at Doogie's chest gave a sharp crack and split open a fissure. The crack then began to spread out bit by bit. Gojijan was completely ignited by these words, and the most lethal strike began to gather in his palm. He's actually driven you into madness to this extent. I will not spare him today. As soon as the words fell, the spell he had been charging in his hand immediately blasted toward Doogie. At the moment when the ninefold firmament divine art exploded, it also swept up a string of dazzling blood beads. The stench of blood in the air grew heavier and heavier, and the heart-locking jade at Doogu's chest also began to grow hotter, bit by bit, until a drop of blood fell. Doogu only felt a sudden warmth on his face and slowly opened his eyes. What entered his sight was Ringbo, deathly pale and weakened to the extreme. He was clearly already gravely injured, yet he was still stubbornly blocking the spell behind him, holding Doogu even tighter in his arms. Ringbo is protecting me? Doogu's brows furrowed tightly, a trace of worry flickering in his eyes, along with a faint, confusing doubt. Jijin, who always appeared noble and aloof before others, now looked utterly bedraggled. Yet in those eyes was love so overflowing it seemed about to spill out. As long as he had a single breath of strength left, he would cling to the person in his arms and shield him, raising his hand with difficulty, his fingertips gently brushing past the side of Doogu's face. Don't be afraid. With me here, no one can hurt you. Doogu's furrowed brows tightened even more. This man could barely hold on himself, yet he was still saying such things. But why, seeing him like this, did Doogu feel such a panicked, choking pain? His heart burned, burning as if it hurt. Jijin had never expected that Ringbo would be so deeply devoted. Just for a member of the demon clan, he had forcibly taken that killing strike head-on, shattering all his internal organs. The next second, a hand directly pierced through Jijin's chest, and only then did Gojijan suddenly realize his own life force was being drained. How is this possible? This is the power of the Hongmeng furnace. By the time he reacted, his body had already completely collapsed. The number 1 Jijin of the celestial realm thus fell. Ashura bloodthirstily licked the crimson off his hand. As expected of the celestial realm's supreme treasure, the Hongmeng furnace, it can even suppress Gojijan's power. His gaze fell on Ringbo, who was gravely injured and stunned. With a single thought, he slammed his fist straight into Ringbo's chest. Ringbo's internal organs were already shattered, and the injury only worsened. At this moment, Ringbo was like a glass doll with its strings cut, so fragile he was about to shatter. He had no strength to fight back, yet his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Ashura abruptly yanked his fist back, and fresh blood spurted out with it. He stared at the blood spraying across his palm, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Surprised? You're not the only one who can use clone techniques. Ringbo's warm blood splattered all over Doogie's face. Doogie could only watch as Ringbo's life force slowly flickered out, until that body finally collapsed weakly toward him. Ringbo's voice was hoarse and raw. Doogie, I love you. That barely audible sentence was his final last words. The metallic tang spreading in his mouth was his blood. In that instant, the shackle around Doogie's heart completely shattered. The heartlock jade could no longer seal his memories, nor could it lock away his heart. The scenes of him and Ringbo, from their first meeting to truly knowing each other, surged into his mind all at once. Ringbo watched as the body before his eyes, still faintly warm and solid, gradually faded away bit by bit. Doogie only felt his mind in complete chaos, as if it had been torn open. In the next second, immense grief directly flooded his chest, almost suffocating him. In all of this, the only one who truly got his way was Ashura. His face lit with wild joy as he rushed toward Doogie, The people in the way are finally all dead. We can finally be together forever. But before his hand could touch him, he was pushed away by a spell from Doogie. He could only watch helplessly as Doogie clutched Ringbo's corpse tightly. Doogie set up a Sea of Saltrees barrier around them. Ashura panicked in confusion and hurried to stop him. "What are you doing, Demon Lord? I order you to stop." Doogie's eyes were brimming with tears. He did not say a single word, only stared fixedly at Ashura until the barrier fully sealed. Only when the surroundings became completely quiet did Ashura suddenly realize Doogie actually was not obeying orders. The Heartlock Jade had failed? Ashura expression froze. Could it be that Doogie had broken free from the Heartlock Jade's control over his primordial spirit? He recalled that clump of red energy at Doogie's chest just now. That really was Doogie's primordial spirit. And Doogie had actually used his own primordial spirit to tie it together with Ringbo's. This was a brute force way of dragging Ringbo's soul back. A deep sense of defeat surged up in Ashura heart as he stared blankly at the barrier enclosing the two physical bodies. You would actually, for his sake, chase him all the way to the underworld? The blood-colored glaze instance has been completed. Congratulations, Angel Bulachi. LVL Ringbo Jegan has just confessed to you. The strategy mission is complete. You gain 1 million affection points, your angelic lifespan is extended by 100 years. You obtain 100 gold coins. Remaining lifespan, 100 years and 7 days. A system prompt sounded in Bulachi's ear. Is it over? It wasn't over yet. He had to bring Ringbo back. Bringing Ringbo back will unlock an extra storyline. Success will stack additional rewards, but failure will cost you everything, and Bulachi's remaining lifespan will be only 7 days. He hadn't expected that he would go this far for a virtual character. His heart felt bitter yet amused, and it was a man at that. Is my sexual orientation still okay? It must be that I've gotten too immersed. That's the only reason I've been shaken to this extent. He broke the rules for him and perished body and soul. And he, for him, cast everything aside and chased him down into hell. Countless lonely, feral spirits wandered around the entrance to hell. The chill was numbing, and the Een energy was slowly eroding Doogie's soul. It said that if you stay too long in the underworld, your soul will forget the past completely. Doogie had no time to think more. He only wanted to find Ringbo's soul as quickly as possible and take him back. A sudden commotion drew Doogie's gaze. He saw countless spirits frantically fleeing forward, something that even vengeful ghosts were afraid of. Was it a mad ghost? Doogie turned to look, and his pupils suddenly constricted. The figure with his back to Doogie was Ringbo. What was he doing? Doogie watched helplessly as Ringbo grabbed a passing wrong soul and shoved it straight into his mouth. In the next moment, he bit down hard on the soul, chewing without the slightest hesitation. Doogie could no longer pretend to be calm. He yanked Ringbo's hand. Are you insane? You are a deity, not a beast. Doogie's face broke into Ringbo's line of sight, instantly stealing all of his attention. Only then did Doogie realize Ringbo's eyes had long since gone empty, as if all light had vanished. Like a wild beast, Ringbo lunged straight at him, but Doogie did not push him away. Instead, he stared into his eyes, trying to pull him back. Ringbo, don't you recognize me anymore? But what was driving Ringbo now was nothing but beast-like instinct. He sank his teeth into Doogie's neck. Crimson, warm blood flowed down, and he licked it as if savoring it. Only then did Doogie become certain. He really had gone mad, controlled solely by instinct and desire. Why? Because their souls were intertwined. Doogie heard the roar from the deepest part of Ringbo's soul. I refuse to accept this. Just one step away. I was clearly just one step away from taking him away. It was only at this moment that Doogie understood. Ringbo had gone mad because of him. The man before his eyes, who had lost all reason and fallen completely into madness. Doogie felt a sharp, throbbing pain in his chest. Yet even so, Ringbo still remembered him, still yearned for him, still loved him. Doogie slowly stood up, his gaze turning cold yet resolute, staring straight at the man who had already gone insane. You were originally a god high above, so cold you had no desires. Yet because you could not let go of your love for me, you were forcibly driven mad, and in the end, because you loved me, you fell and became a ghost. He gently loosened his robe and walked toward Ringbo step by step. Could you really be satisfied just with my blood? Since you can't let go, then don't let go. In Doogie's eyes, there was instead a hint of relief. The bright red wedding robe spilled open in disarray, and the rosy mark on his neck made him look even colder, even more stunning. This body, you can treat however you like. As for this love and desire that devours your reason, let me be the one to fill it to the brim. This is the sacrifice I offer you. offering up my everything. Give me back that god emperor who was once high above. Instinctive desire drove Ringbo to suddenly lunge at Doogie. He only wanted to carve Doogie full of marks that belonged to him alone. Ringbo was like a wild beast that had been starving for far too long, biting all over Doogie's body. He suddenly became even more violent. With one hand he pushed Doogie down, and with the other he savagely tore at his own robe. His expression grew hazy as he stared fixedly at the person beneath him. The tip of his tongue flicked out, his deep craving burning hot. At the moment the two of them completely became one. It was as if a flash of clarity passed through Ringbo's eyes. He stared tightly at the person beneath him. He's so beautiful, like a treasure that could shine. So beautiful that he wanted to break him. The madness in Ringbo's eyes, along with the sudden surge of gloom around him, made Doogie jolt in shock. Ringbo, however, did not give him any time to think. Only a single thought remained in his mind. I must possess Doogie completely. I must devour Doogie. This simple yet violent impulse drove him to bite down hard on Doogie's neck. Along with the blood, Doogie's memories surged into Ringbo's mind in torrents. From the first time I met Ringbo, I already liked him a lot. He was like someone from the heavens, elegant and noble, making me unable to stop admiring him. We became sworn brothers. But I don't just want to be his brother, I love him. I am willing to become female for Ringbo, to be his wife. As the memories poured back, Ringbo's biting movements slowly came to a halt. His gaze also became completely clear. So that day when he said, "the woman to be married," he was actually talking about himself. A heavy wave of remorse suddenly surged up from Ringbo's heart. I'm so stupid, I actually wanted to treat him like that. The person beneath him had already fallen unconscious. Yet Ringbo gentled his movements and softly stroked his face. In his eyes there was not only intense love, but also irrepressible joy. So Doogie has liked me for a long time. Doogie loves me. He truly loves me. In this moment, their primordial souls resonated as one. Ringbo stepped into the world of the primordial soul, and a primordial soul identical to himself spoke calmly. You have cultivated the ruthless art for many years, yet now you are trapped in love. Can you let it go? Ringbo could not let it go. And he did not want to let it go. He shut his eyes tightly and spoke aloud the answer in his heart. That primordial soul, which should have remained utterly undisturbed, actually smiled on the spot. Do you understand the true meaning of this ruthless peak, where all things are born and transformed? Ringbo's emotions surged. If all things are without feeling, how can they give rise to life? In a flash of thought, Ringbo suddenly became enlightened. Being is non-being, and non-being is being. The barrier that had blocked the ruthless mantra for so many years suddenly shattered at this moment. A power of law surpassing the rules of the great Tao erupted, and at the end of the ruthless mantra's return to simplicity, there was actually the affectionate mantra. Doogie woke up slowly, and the first thing he saw was Ringbo's clear and lucid expression. What's more, his own clothes had been straightened neatly. What was this? Seeing the confusion all over his face, Ringbo gave him a doting smile. Thanks to the power of your primordial spirit, I've already broken through the ruthless mantra and cultivated the affectionate mantra. Before he even finished speaking, he pulled Doogie tightly into his arms and lowered his head to kiss him. Your primordial spirit is so warm. With that single move, Doogie's cheeks instantly flushed crimson. Welcome back, Ling. Two bodies, two strands of soul, completely entwined with each other. The part after that, let's skip about 80,000 kilometers of dashcam footage for now. Outside the barrier, Ashura had already waited a full minute, but the longer he waited, the more anxious he became. 1 minute outside the barrier was a whole day inside. Ashura expression grew so dark it was icy, and his fingertips pinched together into a spell seal. I can't delay any longer. I must break the barrier, even if you get hurt. I'm sorry, Doogie. But the spell in his hand didn't even have time to blast out. At the center of the barrier, a terrifying power of law exploded out first. As the barrier completely shattered, Ashura saw only the solid tree suddenly sprout and bloom, its flowering branches half-veiling those two bodies entwined together. In that instant, the baleful energy around him burst forth violently, and the anger in his heart could no longer be suppressed. Beneath the half-open robe, what entered his sight were specks and traces of ambiguous intimacy. From the moment he was born, he had placed Ringbo in his heart, wanting his true feelings, wanting Ringbo to willingly become his queen. But now, Ringbo was lying in another man's arms. Ashura killing intent and fury, together with the incantation in his hand, slammed ruthlessly toward Ringbo. Even if he were to cut Ringbo into 1,000 pieces, it would still not be enough to extinguish the fire in his heart. Yet in the next second, Ringbo actually raised his hand, and with one hand caught the move he had unleashed with all his strength. In this strike, it actually fused the power of the Hongmeng furnace. Ringbo calmly blocked his killing blow, one eyebrow lifting, his tone cold and scornful. I have already mastered the sentiment mantra and can transcend the laws of heaven. You cannot defeat me. As his words fell, Ringbo's palm gently pushed forward. Ashura Wang's killing move was sent back at him intact, just as it was. This strike directly shattered Ashura Wang's internal organs, and his aura weakened on the spot. But Ringbo had absolutely no intention of leaving him a way to live. Ringbo walked toward the bedraggled Ashura Wang step by step, looking down at him from on high, while in his palm that power surpassing heaven's Tao was gradually gathering. This palm strike was just about to fall when it was stopped by Duji. He was the king of the Ashura clan. Duji could not just stand by and watch him die in front of him. There was desolation in his voice, as well as resolve. Spare his life, and let that count as repaying the kindness of his raising me. From this moment on, he and I are completely severed. Hearing this, Ashura Wang looked at Duji in utter disbelief. He would rather die than live on thanks to this sort of plea for mercy. Ringbo did not want to give him any chance to get close to Duji. Since Duji did not want him to die, then he would be spared, but the punishment he deserved would not be lessened in the slightest. Ringbo raised his hand and formed a spell seal, his gaze cold as a blade, locking firmly onto Ashura Wang. You will stay in this primal chaos furnace and reforge your very roots and bones. Ashura Wang had not expected to meet such an end. He murmured in self-mockery. For generations, we Ashura Wang have been manipulating the demon lord's heart. It seems retribution has finally fallen on me. As the power of the laws from the primal chaos furnace behind him pulled at him, Ashura Wang's physical body began to slowly dissipate. His soul would be torn apart and reforged by the furnace day and night. Yet even so, he did not regret it. Even if he had the chance again, he would still do the same. As long as he could do it over again, even just once, perhaps in the next life, then. Ashura Wang's final voice gradually faded away as he slowly sank into the furnace. Duji stared blankly at that tiny lump of something in his palm, while a surge of indescribable emotion suddenly welled up in his chest. The next second, Ringbo hugged him from behind, jealousy almost overflowing. In front of me, you're not allowed to think about other men. The person in the way was finally gone. Ringbo pulled him into an even tighter embrace, his voice low and hoarse with heat. Duji, I am the only emperor between heaven and earth. From this moment on, you belong to me alone. Before Duji could react, Ringbo leaned over and pushed him down. His already disheveled outer robe was conveniently slipped off as well. Congratulations to Angel Bulachi for winning the wager and overachieving in the love body instance. You have obtained Ringbo Jegan's love. Affection level 100,000%. Now teleporting back to heaven. The Gift East mission hall was a cacophony of noise. The angels were chatting about their own instance missions, but the most eye-catching one was still Bulachi. He had Pen chosen the hardest target of all, Ringbo Jegan. There were even angels teasing him on the spot. Bulachi was already lacking in love energy, yet he still dared to risk his life like this. If the mission failed, he might just die. The world would be a quieter place. Quite a few were just waiting to see him suffer a crushing defeat. Suddenly, a burst of bright light flared at the front of the Great Hall. The first-place finisher of the Love Body instance was about to appear. All the angels fixed their eyes on the first-place spot, holding their breath, eager to see who that person actually was. The light gradually faded away. Bulachi, looking utterly languid, went straight up and sat on the first-place throne. Because he had cleared the mission, his already beautiful features were even more exquisite, as if they had been resculpted by light. And on the large screen above his seat, the results of his instance were being announced. Bulachi's amorous body instance, record-breaking. Lifespan extended by 200 years, target character's affection level 100,000%, base value 300, obtained 200 gold coins. The record for the amorous body instance has been broken. Obtained 2 million amorous body points, lifespan extended by 200 years, obtained 200 gold coins. At this moment, all the angels who had once slandered him, hated him, and looked down on him were all stunned. He had actually really broken the record of the amorous body instance. This was way too outrageous. Was this still that incompetent Bulachi? It was simply like he had become a different person. The amorous body instance had been successfully cleared, but Bulachi did not feel the excitement he had imagined. All the pain on his body had disappeared, and the marks left by Ringbo had completely vanished as well. The experiences in the instance felt like a dream, yet he had obviously been so deeply immersed in the role, as long as he thought of those excessively realistic sensations in the script. Bulachi still couldn't stop his face from flushing, and his heartbeat went out of rhythm as well. With the birth of the first-place finisher, a ball of golden light slowly appeared in the sky above. Immediately after, all the angels knelt down in unison and began to welcome the descent of Juzan. So that ball of light was actually God? The radiance grew more and more dazzling, and Bulachi was crushed until he felt stifled, as if his chest cavity were being squeezed. Even his breathing became difficult. All the angels were enduring the terrifying pressure while still devoutly praising Juzan. Only Ruzapael on the main seat was completely unaffected. His gaze swept heavily across the area below, as if examining something. Bulachi only felt as if his internal organs were about to be squeezed until they split. He clutched his chest tightly, his face turning pale. It was terrifying just by existing. It could subject him to such dreadful pressure. When he looked up, however, Ruzapael's expression was completely calm and composed. Bulachi couldn't help complaining inwardly. What an act. No sooner had the thought formed than a dignified voice pressed directly into Bulachi's mind. Because Ruzapael is the Vice Lord of Heaven, the right hand of God. Of the power of paradise, 60% belongs to God, 40% to Ruzapael, so he is not affected by me. Bulachi was stunned on the spot. God was actually talking to him, and God knew what he was thinking. A golden cluster of light slowly wrapped around Bulachi's body. That voice sounded again in his mind. God is all-knowing. Accept God's grace. This is something you earned yourself. Bulachi only felt a surge of pressure pour into his body, even more violent than before, hurting him so much that he could barely breathe. Even though Bulachi had taken first place in the corpse instance raid, there were still many angels waiting to see him make a fool of himself, hoping that he would only evolve low-grade wings, because every angel's wings evolve from their master's soul, and they had already decided that Bulachi's character was despicable. Under the baptism of divine light, the pair of wings on Bulachi's back silently unfurled. When they were fully spread, the angels were once again stunned. He had actually leveled up into butterfly wings, and what's more, into a 4-winged powers class angel at the Holy Sun level. Bulachi's face was full of confusion. This pair of wings? Did God personally give them to him? Yet it was precisely because of this special pair of butterfly wings that Juzan sensed. He was not Bulachi. His soul did not belong here. Heaven was never meant to allow an existence like his. But God decided to grant him a special grace. The condition was to send him to monitor Ruzapael, to monitor the angelic army ruled by Ruzapael, and find their weaknesses. God intended to cast Ruzapael down into hell. God saw the expression on Bulachi's face and began to waver. That voice carried a coaxing warmth. You're hesitating? Have you forgotten what he did to you? The instant the words fell, a burst of golden light exploded in Bulachi's pupils. He lifted his eyes and was dragged into the scenes of how Bulachi and Ruzapael had once been together. In Ruzapael's bedchamber, Bulachi was obsessively cradling a robe, lifting it to his nose to gently inhale. It was His Highness Ruzapael's scent. That familiar breath made his cheeks burn. Bulachi couldn't understand. He clearly liked Ruzapael so much, so why was Ruzapael always so hostile toward him? Does my scent smell good? That cold, clear voice behind him brutally cut off his thoughts, being exposed so bluntly for such a shameful act. And yet Ruzapael just happens to hate him so much. Bulachi's whole body froze. He didn't even have the courage to turn his head. Ruzapael had no intention of letting him go, and raised his hand to clamp down on Bulachi's neck. His eyes were full of disgust and anger. So interested in me? You want me? Bulachi only felt his neck being squeezed in pain, the air being taken from him bit by bit. Yet he still forced himself to nod with difficulty. His attempt to please did not make Ruzapael happy. Instead, it was like adding fuel to the fire, making Ruzapael even angrier. Ruzapael gritted his teeth and suddenly let go of him. He assumed a contemptuous posture, staring at Bulachi like he was trash, the disgust in his tone even heavier. You still dare to pretend to be so devoted? You really have a thick skin. I really want to see just how low you can abase yourself. Bulachi's upper body was bare. His hands were bound behind his back, and he could only let the other order him around at will. Even if all Ruzapael ever gave Bulachi were repeated verbal mockery and naked disgust, Bulachi still clung to him stubbornly. He was just like a toy in Ruzapael's hands, letting him knead and play with him as he pleased. Ruzapael's fingertips brushed through his hair. The next second, he pulled him into his arms. He claimed to be disgusted, yet he did not avoid Bulachi's touch. It was like he was venting his anger through torture. All Bulachi could feel was his neck, pressed tightly by him, faintly aching. He trembled from the pain and softly begged Ruzapael to let him go. Just as Bulachi's plea fell, the angel guard before the hall glanced at Bulachi in Ruzapael's arms, his face full of disgust and confusion. "Your Highness Ruzapael, how can you allow such a lowly sinner to touch your holy body? He should be punished and thrown into the demon's brothel." Ruzapael shot back a cold, sinister look. The angel guard hadn't even finished speaking before he was burned to ash. The disappearance of a life was nothing more than a minor interlude to him. As if nothing had happened, Ruzapael's face remained gloomy as he stared fixedly at the person in his arms. His voice was weighed down with icy anger. "Why did you betray me?" But Bulachi clearly could not understand this question. He didn't even have enough time to love him. How could he possibly betray him? Yet in Ruzapael's eyes, his explanation was nothing but the trick of someone feigning amnesia, and the air around them instantly froze with cold. The murderous aura on Ruzapael's body suddenly gathered. He raised his hand and gripped Bulachi's neck with one hand. His face was so dark it was terrifying, and his voice seemed forced out through clenched teeth. "I really underestimated your shamelessness. I caught you fooling around on the spot, and you still dare to talk about love with a straight face? Fine. Then show me this so-called love of yours. Act it out for me." A ring of light surfaced in Ruzapael's golden eyes and shot straight toward the center of Bulachi's forehead. That oppressive force from the spiritual level forced Bulachi to shut his eyes in pain. When he opened his eyes again, in his field of vision, several burly, stark-naked men lunged fiercely at him. He could feel a resonance deep in the soul of this body. The former Bulachi had loved him to the point of madness. Yet it was this bastard who had trampled that love into something utterly worthless. But the person he was now was no longer that Bulachi who could be humiliated at will. He looked at Ruzapael still putting on that lofty, high and mighty air, as if he were crowning himself. In that instant, the anger in Bulachi's chest almost exploded. He raised his hand and struck, directly chopping apart the crown Ruzapael had offered. The wings behind him trembled with his loss of control, and in an instant transformed into countless butterflies. Ruzapael stared blankly at his own scratched finger. His eyes filled with disbelief. The angels below erupted in an uproar at once. He had actually injured His Highness Ruzapael? How was that possible? His Highness possessed a holy body. With each beat of Bulachi's wings, the butterflies gathered thicker and thicker, dense as a surging tide. At the same time, a strange fragrance rapidly spread out. Wherever the butterflies passed, the angels' minds began to be drawn away by him. Their eyes gradually turned vacant with stupefaction, yet crazed to the point of terror. Even Ruzapael sensed a faint feeling of being bewitched. Those eyes seemed to possess some kind of innate deadly magic. Ruzapael suddenly remembered that he had seen something like this in an ancient book. These butterfly wings themselves were an omen of misfortune. Suddenly, an extremely majestic voice forcibly cut all of this short. "Enough, all of you stop. Bulachi, you are heaven's greatest winner in the past 100 years. Whatever you want, I will grant it." Only then did Bulachi reluctantly respond. He more or less acquiesced to the pact with God, and the first thing he asked for was to become Ruzapael's deputy, assisting him in commanding the angelic host. Ruzapael refused outright, without a trace of hesitation. But God said that this was Bulachi's reward as the victor, and thus overruled Ruzapael's objection on the spot. Seeing him suffer this setback, Bulachi felt a surge of satisfaction. He folded his wings and looked at Ruzapael with smugness. "I didn't do it on purpose, you know how I am. No angel can defy God. Even if you are the Vice Lord of Heaven, you're only the Vice Lord after all." Bulachi strutted past him arrogantly, the joy in his heart practically overflowing. "That bastard must be furious right now. Serves him right. God is out to get you. Just howl for your own fate." Ruzapael clamped a hand down on his shoulder. His gloom from just now vanished in an instant, but the arrogance in his tone didn't lessen at all. It was like he'd become a different person, cold and merciless. In the next second, he leaned in close to Bulachi's ear and whispered, "To get my attention, you're really putting on quite a show, huh?" This blunt provocation hit Bulachi right where it hurt most, and the air pressure around them seemed to drop. Bulachi clenched his fists, forcibly suppressing the urge to punch him. The guy was clearly trying to piss him off. If he threw a punch in public, he could forget about ever getting into the army. Bulachi forced his anger down, but his expression went cold in an instant. Yet he still pulled out a smile, his mockery even sharper. "Not at all, this is nothing more than a command from God. And you really think that day you managed to satisfy Bulachi?" Seeing the other remain silent, Bulachi simply turned around and twisted the knife again. He raised a finger and gestured casually, his tone dripping with teasing. "Honestly, I didn't feel a thing." After finishing his taunt, Bulachi flicked his hand dismissively and walked off. He didn't even look back, letting the other man's face grow darker and darker. In front of everyone, he'd openly provoked Ruzapael, then turned and headed off to wander through heaven's bars. The angels stared at his departing back in shock, and no one ever again belittled or insulted him the way they used to. Inside a bar in heaven, a female presenting angel sighed to herself, if only there were a man as handsome as Ruzapael. The moment the words left her mouth, Bulachi slid the fruit wine in his hand directly over to her. He put on a standard business smile. This glass of red and blue fruit wine really matches your eyes. It's on me. The woman turned her head and saw him, and her heartbeat instantly went out of control. So handsome. Inside the Ruzapael palace, Meigao delivered the drink he wanted. Sounds of energy exchange came from within. The angel beside Meigao blushed, staring at the bedchamber in shock. Meigao, aren't you going in? Lord Ruzapael hasn't carried out an energy exchange for a long time. Meigao didn't answer him and turned to leave. He could clearly sense that cluster of light. That was the energy of Ruzapael's true body. High-level angels will make lower-ranking angels generate love, then draw out this desire and convert it into their own energy. Conversely, the angels who provide love energy will be granted ultimate pleasure, like a reward, and also like a price to pay. His Highness Ruzapael is the highest energy level angel. What he is doing now is nothing more than the simplest form of energy absorption. But what is truly rare is that one time with Bulachi. Your skin is even smoother than a girl's. So beautiful. The woman waited for a long time, yet the moment that was supposed to happen still didn't come. Her clothes had already slipped down past her fragrant shoulders. So why was the man in front of her still not moving? She frowned, staring at that half-naked, beautiful face. Handsome. Meanwhile, Bulachi's face was full of dark lines as he lowered his head to look at the little brother below him that showed no reaction at all. Ruzapael was in his bedchamber, drinking alone in brooding silence. He couldn't understand why, when he absorbed the energy of other angels, he felt nothing at all. Only Bulachi could elicit a reaction from him. And then, thinking of Bulachi's recent changes, Ruzapael's gaze sank bit by bit, growing as deep and dark as if it could swallow a person whole. But Bulachi had absolutely no idea what was wrong with himself. Faced with the temptation of a beauty, he actually didn't have any reaction at all. Clearly he wasn't like this before. It seemed as if only alcohol could numb him and get him through it. He raised his wine cup again and lifted his eyes. His gaze stopped on the golden hexagonal pattern on his wrist. That was the reward he received for doing God's work, and it could grant him one wish. But Bulachi did not choose to return to his previous world, because there lay the past he least wanted and least wished to remember. In fact, the way he is now had its seeds planted long ago. The more alcohol he poured down, the more uncontrollably memories of the past surged up. Back when he was still the star Chejungtian, he was already being twisted bit by that world. Originally, his career had been rising all the way. As the super rookie Chejungtian, he appeared on almost every big and small magazine cover. In front of the camera, he was widely recognized as a rare, clean, and pure high-quality idol, and he had even gotten engaged to his childhood sweetheart girlfriend. You could say that, at that time, he had gained both love and career, until he met that man, and his life was completely overturned. He thought it was just an ordinary contract negotiation. He didn't notice the strange look on his agent's face in that fleeting moment. When the door opened, he was stunned. Why was the person for the negotiation wearing pajamas? Seeing him, the other party spoke with a hint of arrogance in his confusion. Why is it a man? He did not forget why he had come. He picked up the wine on the table, poured a glass, and explained that he was there on behalf of the company to discuss the contract. Skilled and smooth, he handed the wineglass to the man in front of him. Ru Chong, I drink to you. He thought this meeting would go as smoothly as in the past, but he couldn't read the subtle, unfathomable look in the man's eyes. The man did not take that glass of red wine. Instead, he suddenly clamped down on his wrist. Before he had time to react, he was roughly yanked down to sit on the sofa. The man pinched his chin, leaned close to his face and scrutinized him critically. So beautiful, as if he had been carefully carved. Your company really does have an eye for beauty. Back then, he still couldn't understand what that sentence really meant, until the man moved close to his ear and added in a low voice, someone like you, even if you're a man, I don't mind. Only then did he react, but his body was faster than his brain, and his fist swung out first. Because of that single punch, the company immediately put him on ice. That punch also shattered his ridiculous brotherhood and love all at once. That brother of many years, when he fell to rock bottom, kept saying over and over that he would pull him up. And the result? He helped. And helped himself right onto his fiancée's bed. What was even more ironic was that he caught the two of them in the act on the spot. And as for that childhood bond, his childhood sweetheart didn't even blink, just said calmly, "He's not a celebrity anyway, it's normal for me to cheat." That aunt who had once said, "I'll only be at ease if I entrust my daughter to you," had long since deleted him completely and cleanly. All because of that one punch, he fell straight from heaven into hell. In that moment, he had nothing left. Even the courage to keep living was drained away. The bustling city was so noisy, yet there wasn't a single place that could contain him. The rain pelted his body, and even the honking in his ears sounded as if it were separated by a layer of glass. Just walking away like this didn't seem so bad. But the blaring of the horn came closer and closer, and footsteps pressed in on him. At the next second, someone yanked his arm back hard. When he turned around, he finally saw clearly. It was the person he least wanted to see, the man who had made him lose everything. He grabbed the man's collar like a madman. "It was you, you bastard. You did all of this, didn't you?" In the man's eyes, there wasn't the arrogance he had imagined. Instead, the man patiently explained, "You've misunderstood. I didn't do anything. Your company found out you hit me. They got scared on their own and shelved you. I've actually been looking for you all this time." In that moment, he finally realized how small he was. But that damn pride was still at work, and he still refused to bow his head, cursing the man furiously. "You're just rich and powerful. What are you so proud of, scum?" That man sitting at the top of the pyramid had already given him all the patience he could. The man's eyes dimmed for a split second. This world has always been groveling at the feet of money and power. Family, friendship, love. Haven't you had enough of them already? This is reality. The man's words were like a knife, stabbing straight into his heart. Without money and power, he had nothing at all. At that moment, he made a decision. Since he was still alive, he would stand at the top once more. The pouring rain seemed to wash away his last line of defense. He nodded, offering up the thing the man wanted most in exchange. The man would help him climb back to the top and let him go on living. Ever since he accepted that man, he had sunk completely. Bulachi couldn't help but give a bitter smile. He had gotten what he wanted. Since he had already become so distorted, what was the point of pretending to be noble now? Pretending to be noble? Since heaven had given him a chance to live again, then he should throw away the past and start over. Straighten out his sexual orientation. Find a girlfriend. Then live life seriously. He had just made up his mind to get up and leave when the rush of alcohol suddenly surged over him. Bulachi only felt his vision growing more and more blurred. "Damn, it really feels like I drank too much." He staggered a few steps, and in the next second, a wave of intense vertigo crashed down on him. At the moment he was about to fall, someone suddenly wrapped an arm around his waist. All the angels in the bar were once again collectively stunned. Lord Ruzapael actually pulled him into his arms. When Ruzapael returned to the residence, his face was full of irritation, and there was still someone's vomit on his chest. Bulachi was still complaining nonstop, but Ruzapael still just threw him to the angelic guards and went to wash himself clean. As long as Ruzapael thought of his face, the more he thought about it, the more annoyed he felt. What is this guy up to again? He had always been like this, pitiful and meek in the daytime. Then at night it was like he became a different person, terrifyingly bloodthirsty. Ruzapael had never forgotten that side of Bulachi. So gloomy it felt cold, his whole body covered in the blood of his own kind, like a madman with nothing but the urge to kill in his eyes. Slaughtering one's own kind was already a grave crime. But the moment he saw Ruzapael's face clearly, that bloodlust suddenly changed, turning into naked adoration. Like a child, he wrapped his arms around Ruzapael and softly begged him to keep him company. In the gentlest tone, he said the most frightening words, "Play a kissing game with me. They just taught me how to play it, but they hurt me, so I killed them." After he finished, as if suddenly remembering something, he reached out and picked up the red wine on the table. With a very serious look, he adds, "They said you have to drink some liquor before playing games." Bulachi lifts the wine glass and pours it straight into his mouth. In that liquor, there is clearly still the blood from his hand mixed in. He even takes the liquor in his mouth and pours it directly onto Ruzapael's lips. It is as if he needs evil and temptation together. He licks away the red at the corner of his mouth and smiles with a cruelty wrapped in innocence. "How am I doing? Is this how the three of them taught me?" Ruzapael has no choice but to admit his interest has been piqued. Multiple personalities, ominous butterfly wings. Just what kind of man is this Bulachi? Just then, a voice from the nearby bath suddenly breaks his train of thought. "Where are my clothes? I puked all over that bastard. He's definitely going to get back at me. No way, I need to slip out first." Bulachi has no idea that Ruzapael is in the next bath over. As soon as he finishes speaking, the nausea from his hangover surges up, making him feel absolutely awful. In the next moment, A chain condensed from magic snaps around his neck. His whole body is yanked brutally in front of Ruzapael. Bulachi's face is full of confusion and anger, while Ruzapael remains very calm. I don't like secrets that I don't know about. You're the one who hooked my curiosity. You brought this on yourself. As the words fall, his expression suddenly darkens, and his gaze follows suit. His palm comes down directly on Bulachi's forehead. His voice so cold it is almost calm, yet he shoves all the pain straight into Bulachi's body. Under the forced empowerment of the mantra, Bulachi only felt as if his whole body were being brutally torn apart by horses. His teeth chattered, and his fingertips were rubbed raw, leaving streaks of blood. The pain was like having the flesh shaved off his body piece by piece. In pain to the extreme, Bulachi's eyes began to go blank, as if losing focus. Ruzapael lifted his chin with one hand, the curiosity in his eyes growing heavier. Even this kind of pain can't pry it open? As expected, your soul has a very strong seal, so let's try another method. Under the forced empowerment of pleasure, Bulachi's legs went weak, and his body almost stopped obeying his commands. It was a shame so intense it was suffocating. The moment he thought of that bastard's lofty expression, forcing him to beg, the anger in Bulachi's chest instantly surged up. Was he deliberately humiliating him? Just now, while he was off guard, Bulachi had headbutted him and knocked him out. He had to escape before he woke up, but his body felt too awful. He had to find someone. Right at the exit, he saw a man. Bulachi disregarded any consequences and lunged straight at that man. But in the eyes of the angelic guards behind him, this move was clearly a public humiliation of Archangel-in-Chief Michael. Following that furious roar, the long blade in his hand slashed down viciously toward Bulachi. No one had expected that Michael would actually catch the angel's longsword behind him with his bare hands for his sake. Ruzapael rushed over and, taking the opportunity, yanked Bulachi straight into his arms, his forearm instinctively moving to shield him. Yet he was still a step slower than Michael. Ruzapael's expression sank in an instant, his voice so cold it seemed to tighten, a faint, indistinct hostility hidden in his eyes. This is my adjutant, Bulachi. He has actually offended the Archangel. It's my fault for not keeping him in line. I'll take him back right now for a proper lesson. Farewell. Michael's brows furrowed slightly. He still replied politely, "It's nothing." But his gaze kept following the person in his arms whose cheeks had turned red. In that moment, he actually felt a little dazed, and could only watch their departing backs. Almost unconsciously, Michael murmured Bulachi's name under his breath. The moment they left Michael's line of sight, Ruzapael directly slammed Bulachi against the wall, caging him in. His face was dark as he stared fixedly into Bulachi's eyes. Michael actually chose to protect you. When did you hook him? You really do have a talent for this sort of thing. Ruzapael's gaze grew even more intense, his tone full of mockery, yet hiding a faint jealousy he refused to admit. Bulachi let out a soft laugh and shot back. Sounds like you just caught your lover cheating on the spot. The air pressure around them instantly dropped to the absolute limit. Even when Bulachi was limp all over in the lingering aftershocks of that ultimate sensation, he still refused to bow his head in front of him. He forcefully shoved Ruzapael away, his eyes cold and contemptuous. Let go. Of all the people I might seduce, it would never be you. Relax. I'll go out right now. Ruzapael had always been rational, but Bulachi could always easily push him to the brink of losing control. He suddenly grabbed Bulachi's shoulder and twisted him around. He pressed the man so that his back was against him and pinned him directly to the wall, a hint of madness flickering in his eyes. Even if you keep running your mouth, Bulachi only felt a chill run down his back, and with that ultimate sensation still there, his legs were almost too weak to stand. He trembled all over, carrying a mix of shame and anger, forced to let the other man see him so pathetic. The corner of Ruzapael's mouth lifted as he stared meaningfully at the person beneath him. Oh, I almost forgot. That ultimate sensation hasn't worn off yet. Bulachi's internal alarm blared at full volume in an instant. He could hear exactly what Ruzapael meant to do, and he turned around in mortified fury to issue a harsh threat. But his body was so weak and limp that there was no intimidation at all. Bulachi hated this feeling of his body being out of his own control. He could only let the bastard behind him do as he pleased. Ruzapael was just one step away from fully confirming it. In that split second of distraction, Bulachi raised his hand and slapped him hard across the face with a crack. Bulachi knitted his brows tightly, glaring at Ruzapael with open disgust. Don't do disgusting things. This sentence completely ignited Ruzapael. His gaze suddenly sank, frighteningly cold. He violently pinned Bulachi down and forcibly began the energy exchange. Bulachi only felt a surge of power pouring in from Ruzapael's side. His consciousness was gradually emptied out. His body fell completely out of control until he fully fainted. Yet Ruzapael was staring in shock at Bulachi's back. In the center of the butterfly wings, there was a pitch-black eye opened wide. And this scene, the energy exchange between Bulachi and Ruzapael, was also witnessed by Megao. He hadn't expected that Bulachi would be so special to Lord Ruzapael. The hatred in his heart instantly deepened. Ruzapael rummaged through countless ancient texts before finally discovering Bulachi's true form. The only butterfly in heaven. In the bedchamber, Bulachi slowly woke up, his mind replaying again and again, before he fainted, how Ruzapael had hurt him. His gaze gradually became empty. Hatred surged out together with his tears. Ruzapael, this humiliation today, I will definitely make you repay. I will definitely make you lose everything. Within the angelic legion, as soon as Ruzapael appeared, he heard the loud and orderly response of the angel legion. The angelic legion respectfully welcomes His Highness Ruzapael, Radiant Star, Vice Sovereign of Heaven. Bulachi clenched his teeth, glaring furiously at the man in the chief seat. He hadn't expected that this bastard actually did have real prestige. Ruzapael's voice was loud yet calm. The devils of hell are restless and have repeatedly provoked the majesty of heaven. The time has come. As soon as he finished speaking, angels pushed the cage holding the demon to the front of the platform. Ruzapael raised his hand, his palm aimed at the demon. A terrifying energy rapidly gathered in his palm. The demon exploded in an instant, flesh and blood mangled, fragments splattering in all directions. The moment the blood and flesh splashed over, Bulachi only felt an extreme wave of nausea. The moment the blood and flesh splashed over, Bulachi only felt an extreme wave of nausea. Immediately after, Ruzapael publicly announced that heaven would launch an all-out war against hell. Bulachi handed over the list of the 30 generals joining the war, along with the vanguard petition, to Ruzapael together. Finally, he took out his own application, checked it over once more, then informed the other party with a blank expression. He was also one of the 30 generals. God had already given his approval. After speaking, he did not spare even a glance for Ruzapael's face, which was gradually darkening. In the most standard, most official tone, he reported, "The pre-war mobilization banquet for tonight has been properly arranged. This subordinate will now take his leave." Without waiting for Ruzapael to speak, he turned and left, clean and decisive. The just-submitted application burned to ash bit by bit between Ruzapael's fingers. As if giving someone a final reminder, Ruzapael spoke slowly. "You trust God that much? Obey him that much? The ironic thing is, for you, he's the least trustworthy person in this entire heaven." Bulachi did not respond. When he reached the doorway, he only added coldly, "The application will be resubmitted." The banquet had already begun. Bulachi looked up, gazing at Ruzapael weaving through the crowd. God was going to cast Ruzapael into hell. If he caught something on him this time, he could make God strike directly and completely push him down. Bulachi no longer hesitated and headed straight for Ruzapael's office. Meeting him again made Michael momentarily lose focus. He even forgot to reply to the angel trying to chat him up beside him. His cheeks burned, and he could only stare blankly at Bulachi's departing back. Bulachi searched Ruzapael's office for a long time, but he found nothing at all. This guy was terrifyingly meticulous, with almost no flaws, and Bulachi's heart grew restless beyond his control. He unconsciously bit down on the corner of his lips, his teeth grinding out thin traces of blood, while the aura around him began to transform into white, translucent butterflies. Bulachi stared at the fluttering cluster of butterflies, slightly dazed. As if sensing his distress, the energy inside his body had turned into butterflies on its own. It was only when the butterflies came to a stop that he came back to himself. This was actually a seal. The moment the item landed in his hands, a sound suddenly came from the doorway, and he jolted in fright. The moment the item landed in his hands, a cold voice came from outside the door. "What are you doing?" Hearing the voice, Bulachi finally saw clearly who had arrived. It seemed to be the one who had previously followed at Ruzapael's side. Caught red-handed on the spot, Bulachi was so embarrassed that his whole body went tense. He had just opened his mouth and managed to utter a single syllable. In the next second, the other person suddenly lost control of their emotions. Before Bulachi had time to react, the person in front of him slammed into him. Bulachi only felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his abdomen. He shoved the person away and clutched his wound with a death grip. In an instant, a large patch of bright red blood soaked through those pure white robes. The white robe, set off against that dark crimson, was so harsh it hurt the eyes. The harder Bilachi pressed down, the tighter he held. Yet the scorching hot blood in his abdomen still kept gushing out. Unable to see his exact position, Meigao gripped the blood-stained dagger tightly, his whole body on high alert. You actually dared to sneak into His Highness's room. You must be trying to steal something from His Highness. As the blood flowed out bit by bit, Bilachi's body grew weaker and weaker, and the butterflies he had conjured began slowly to dissipate. The ribbon fell and then melted away. Only then did Bilachi see clearly. It was actually a list of angels who had been unfaithful to God. The commotion in the study quickly alerted the angelic guards. Seeing someone break in, Bilachi immediately picked up the list and, clutching his wound, rushed out. Meigao roared furiously in the direction he had fled. Catch him! He stole His Highness's belongings. At the banquet, Ruzapael happened to see the scene of Bilachi fleeing in a panic. In Bilachi's mind, there was only one thought left. He had to get to Juzin as quickly as possible. But he had lost too much blood, and he was already starting to feel dizzy. The angel behind him kept chasing relentlessly, and without realizing it, he ran to the entrance of the instance. He clutched the list in a death grip and looked back in a panic. The angel was about to catch up to him. Damn, there's no way out. As more and more blood flowed, Bilachi only felt his eyelids growing unbearably heavy, so tired that he just wanted to fall asleep. At the very second he was about to collapse, someone suddenly yanked his arm hard. Bilachi instinctively tried to break free, but his body was so weak he couldn't even muster any strength. He didn't even have time to see who was behind him. Relying purely on instinct, he directly grabbed the other person by the collar. In the next second, the two of them disappeared from the entrance of the instance at the same time. Inside the instance, the king sat solemnly on the throne of the Great Hall, having long been waiting for his adoptive father Wonyung to triumphantly return to the court. His face was full of joy, and his gaze fell straight onto His Highness's prison cart. Adoptive father, is this the Fox King you intend to present to us? Forced into playing out the storyline, Ruzapael had at this moment become Wonyung in the instance. Facing the king, he still wore that same cold and proud expression, his tone as calm as if without a ripple. Your servant pacified the northwestern lords, and on the way back saw auspicious purple clouds coiling above Mount Kunlun. I discovered this injured Fox King and thus subdued him. Wonyung looked at the gravely injured Dalji, who was still murmuring the Yin Shang ends, the Zhou rises, and let out a barely audible sigh. This guy has turned into. Even while injured he forced his way into the dungeon. His condition is so bad he went straight into amnesia. His gaze darkened against his will. What a hassle. Might as well just kill him, end the dungeon, and snatch the list back. Thinking of this, he raised his head, put on that for the country and the people tone, and advised the king. The nine-tailed fox governs the fortune of all the thrones under heaven and is an auspicious sign. By using this celestial fox in a ritual, we can extend the mandate of our Zhou. At the word auspicious, the king finally showed some interest. With a touch of curiosity, he examined the celestial fox in the prison cart. Only when the other raised his head did he finally see that face clearly. So beautiful it seemed able to drag a person's soul away. In the instant their gazes met, the king felt his heart suddenly lose control, pounding so hard it hurt. Ha! His tone was full of doubt, yet his eyes were nailed to the person in the cart, not blinking even once. I've heard that the nine-tailed fox is the favored courtier of the celestial emperor. If the heavens descend punishment. Wonyung had long since prepared a foolproof response. It's of no consequence. I have already sealed his aura. The upper realm will not sense it. At the moment Dalji met his gaze, a faint, ghostly violet light surfaced in his eyes. The king lost his wits on the spot. The loosely worn outer robe slid down with a soft rustle, like a spark that shot straight into and ignited his suppressed desire. His throat tightened, and his mouth went terribly dry. Then, how does Yafu intend to proceed? Wonyung drew his sword on the spot and lifted Dalji's chin with the cold tip of the blade. He still remained expressionless, but his voice was as cold as frost. Cut off this fox's head and limbs, bury them into the underground dragon vein, and my great Shang's fortune will be secured for 100 years. As soon as his voice fell, Wonyung raised his hand, about to strike the Fox King. At the very moment when the sword tip was about to fall on Dalji's neck, the king suddenly shouted for them to stop. He walked unhurriedly from the front of the hall toward the prison cart, raised his hand, and lifted Dalji's chin with a single finger. His gaze burned as he stared at that face of ultimate beauty. I have heard that the whole Fox Immortal clan is peerlessly beautiful and endlessly alluring. Only today do I realize that the Fox King is the true unrivaled beauty. Even though he was a man, all the beauties in this world paled into insignificance before him. To kill him just like this would be far too wasteful. Wonjung's brows furrowed, and he suddenly felt a sinking in his heart. He only saw the king's lips curl into a meaningful smile. Since it concerns fortune, then let him enter my dragon vein. With that, he raised his hand and directly chopped through the chains on the prison cart. Scooping Dalji up in his arms, he walked away, leaving only his back for Wonjung to see. Wonjung's face instantly darkened. Damn it! The king is protecting him? Does he want to get the king killed? No, if he kills the dungeon core now, the dungeon will very likely collapse immediately. Wonjung only felt his temples swell. It seemed this boring plot could not be skipped and had to be played out to the end. Because he was forcibly dragged into the dungeon by Bulachi, Tohangson had no choice but to pick a capture target. Even though he was the Vice Lord of Heaven, he still could not escape the dungeon's rules, and in the end he could only choose the Fox King, Dalji. But choosing him did not mean he intended to see the story through to its conclusion. Wonjung slipped silently into the king's bedchamber. At the moment, it seemed that simply killing the king would obviously be much more straightforward. But just as he stepped inside, he ran into the scene of the king putting his hands all over Dalji. The air pressure around Wonjung instantly dropped to its lowest point. His fingers tightened uncontrollably, clamping down hard on the sword hilt. But in the next second, something even more startling froze him in place. The world always said foxes were seductive and sensual, yet he just had to be a cold and arrogant fox king. Even with his primordial spirit and golden core gone, he still refused to lower that noble head of his. He pressed the dagger against his own vulnerable neck. He would rather die than let himself be toyed with. On ordinary days, the king, who was cruel to the extreme, was now so flustered that he lost his composure. He longed to possess this fox king whose beauty made him fall at first sight, and even if he could not have him now, he did not want to lose him, so the king hurriedly explained that he was only too fond of his beloved consort. Even as a prisoner awaiting judgment, Dalji still held his brows high, his tone so cold it dripped with disdain. Who is your beloved consort? This king is the noble king of the nine-tailed celestial foxes. Such a Dalji also left Wonjung, hidden behind the curtain, staring in a daze. This guy, is he really that kind of seductive fox from the legends? The Fox clan had always been charming and alluring. They had never seen someone this cold and aloof. Yet beneath that icy expression of his, the innate allure of a fox could not be concealed, and instead became even more tantalizing. That inborn sense of enchantment pressed down, making one's throat go dry without realizing it. The king carefully cupped both of his hands, afraid the dagger would hurt him instead, and responded again and again, "All right, all right, all right, I understand." When he finally put the dagger down, only then did the king dare to drop a light kiss on the back of his hand. His voice pressed very low, as if afraid of angering him again. "I will listen to my beloved consort in all things." He was still gently supporting Dalji's hand, yet toward the people outside the hall he instantly switched back to the king's tone. "Attend me, summon Gangsang." Having lost his primordial spirit and golden core, Dalji now lacked sufficient magical power, and even the warmth coming from his palm made him tremble slightly. He truly had no strength to spare anymore. The king seemed to sense something was wrong, worry almost overflowing. "My beloved consort, why is your breathing so unsteady?" Wonjung's gaze instantly sank. The air pressure around him dropped to a biting cold in a second. He turned and stormed off. If he stayed any longer, he feared he would lose control. Gangsang, who had been summoned, had just arrived when he ran into a dark-faced Wonjung, and his expression froze for a moment. What was making Grand Preceptor One so angry?